The legendary Hollywood director. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526. The Big Market. Subscriptions. Votes. There is still no shortage of movies released in the North American film market around mid-March. Among them, there are the action movie The Amazing Mr. Doubtfire released by Disney, the horror movie The Ring 2 released by DreamWorks, and the love movie The Boys and Girls in Black and White released by Columbia. Of course, there are far more than these 3 movies being shown in theaters, but only these 3 movies can pose a threat to the daydreamer in terms of market box office. This is not because Blue Butterfly Pictures is arrogant, but because its competitors really have nothing to beat, and they are embarrassed to brag, even if they want to. You see, the top of the box office list the day before yesterday was The Amazing Mr. Doubtfire, which has been screened for 9 days, starring Vin Diesel. Such an action-oriented bold man does not go to fight and kill, but actually changes his career to become a male housewife who takes care of the family. The plot is still very hilarious. The director is Adam Shackman, who is very good at comedy. With the strong combination, the first week accumulated $30.2 million and won the championship. However, its good days seem to be over. On March 21st, the second day after the release of The Daydreamer, the average attendance rate was as high as 80%, and some theaters in busy areas were even full and had to queue up. These theater chains are all smart people. Naturally, they would not miss the money and directly increase the intensity of resource allocation. In the office of CAA, Jim Carrey flipped through more than a dozen newspapers with large circulations. What surprised him was that except for 1 or 2 articles that stood on the critical position, the others gave very positive praise. If he hadn't known that Stanton and others had counted media reports, Jim Carrey would have suspected that they didn't buy those newspapers with bad reviews at all. After all, being criticized all the time, no matter how good the box office is, there are always people saying weird things, which makes Jim Carrey a little uncomfortable with this situation. After a while, the office door was pushed open, and an assistant rushed in. Good news, everyone. Mr. Jim Carrey, Mr. Stanton, all the box office statistics for yesterday's movies are out. Really? Bring it here. Stanton felt that the assistant was in a good mood, and it should be a beautiful data. He also felt a little happy in his heart, so he took the initiative to stand up and took the box office report. Surrounded by people, Jim Carrey felt relieved instantly. Is it confirmed? Someone asked. Yes, it has been checked several times. The assistant nodded seriously. That's good. For a moment, everyone in the group felt that the burden was much lighter, and they could even imagine how much bonus they could get. I saw that on the clear report. The name of Daydreamer was so front, and the data was so wonderful. The first day of $24.75 million, the daily box office champion, occupied 27% of the box office share of North American theaters. Yes, a movie with more than 1/5 of the market. This means potential. If the box office is not suddenly cut in half, it has almost locked the weekly box office champion this week. This is Jim Carrey's simplest thought. Then he began to calculate in his mind. In addition to the basic salary, according to the actor contract signed with Firefly Pictures, he also enjoys 3% of the North American box office share. On the first day, $24.75 million, he can share $730,000. If a small amount accumulates into a large amount, maybe he can earn more than $17 million from this participation, which is already very satisfactory to Jim Carrey. You know, although he has entered the $20 million actor club, it has been difficult for Jim Carrey to get a relatively high profit in the market for so many years. If he can earn more than $17 million and gain a good reputation, he is willing to do so. He is not short of money, but he does not want to lose his position in the circle. Stanton saw Jim Carrey, raised his eyebrows and smiled, obviously immersed in joy and excitement, but he quickly suggested, from now on, you need to do more public relations for your personal image to recover the past decline. This is a good opportunity, just use it to increase your bargaining chips. On the other side, in Blue Butterfly Pictures, Lyman and other employees responsible for film distribution were also enjoying the joy of victory after receiving the box office data of the film. In addition to winning the daily box office championship without suspense, more importantly, several competitors were greatly affected. For example, the box office overlord The Wonderful Father the Day Before Yesterday directly dropped from daily revenue of $8 or $9 million to $6.52 million, a drop of more than 30%. Even the former number one was like this, not to mention the others, who were all squeezed miserably. After all, there are only so many audiences in the schedule. With The Wonderful Father taking the top spot, naturally someone will spit out this market. In the top 5 list, Boys and Girls in Black and White has 5.24 million, The Ring remake of the American version has 4.76 million, and MGM's The Ring has 4.28 million. The 4 movies together can only beat The Dreamers. It can be said that they have no strength to compete with it. This means that if the audience's reputation for watching movies does not collapse, the market performance will be very stable. Moreover, if we compare the number of screens for several movies, the gap will be even greater. Among the 5 movies, except for The Wonderful Father with more than 1,800 screens, the rest are not much more than The Dreamers, but almost all of them are maintained at around 1,000, except that The Ring may have a little worse box office, which has been reduced to more than 870. But even so, the box office of The Dreamers is several times that of the following single movies. If you really count it, the single theater has earned more than $23,000. How can this not make people happy and feel stable? Moreover, it has achieved such results at the beginning, and it is not a popular schedule, so the pressure is not that great. It is estimated that it is not a problem to break 100 million in North America. Then, what about the world? Lyman is afraid that the movie will not be acclimatized if it is shot a few years in advance, and he has deliberately adopted a very cautious distribution model. The number of openings has not been expanded at all, leaving room for maneuver. That is, if the market performance is not good at that time, the investment in publicity and distribution can be reduced in time to reduce the risk. But if this box office momentum continues, will there be no pressure to return the investment? The original version did not have the blessing of a traffic star like Jim Carrey, but it got more than 180 million. Maybe now, this movie with an investment of no more than $55 million is expected to break 200 million. At least, this movie chose a pretty good schedule, which obviously suppressed the limelight of several other works, and took up a large part of the market share. When Lyman learned all this, although he was happy, he was also worried about the script story of the new film. CG special effects and the use of visual technology cannot be too little, otherwise it will not actually play any role in promoting the digital field. What should I choose to shoot? It cannot be too advanced, and the use of technology cannot be too little. The conditions are limited. Chapter 527 First week box office, subscriptions, tickets. There are many criteria for judging the quality of a movie, from the language of the lens to the shooting techniques, or the editing methods. There are always too many things to talk about. But for most movie fans, there is perhaps only one market element that can always stimulate the senses and express approval. That is, the box office. Compared with movie reviews that are more professional and personal, the real-time box office is always clear at a glance. Passers are also prone to draw a conclusion based on this data. If the box office is high, the movie will never be too bad. Therefore, the basis for ordinary audiences to watch movies is very easy: to be attracted by the box office figures of a movie, and then they will have the idea of going to the theater to support it. The box office of $24.75 million created by Daydreamer on the first day with nearly 1,000 screens naturally won the attention of many audiences. With Blue Butterfly Pictures continuing to invest in publicity funds, news similar to the hit of Daydreamer has been continuously pushed into the information market by major media, thus accumulating more attention. Due to the problems of life and reading habits, Americans still like to buy newspapers, which is a common reading material for leisure time. Then naturally, the box office performance of films that can attract the audience's attention is the most commonly reported direction. Director Lyman last has once again created a different light-hearted comedy feature film, which won the box office championship on the first day. There is joy, fun, and a long journey of small people that is so wonderful. It even won a high box office of $24.75 million on the first day. There is no doubt that The Dreamer combines business and art well, and is also popular among movie fans. With an average of $24,000 per theater, The Dreamer has completely defeated all its competitors. Just yesterday, Blue Butterfly Pictures released the film with only about 1,000 theater screens, but it lived up to the expectations and support of the audience, and it won the daily box office championship with its strong force over a number of films. What's more rare is the comparison of all aspects of data between The Dreamer and the second place The Wonderful Father. Both belong to the category of comedy, and the production cost of The Dreamer is slightly higher than that of The Wonderful Father, but the audience evaluation on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes is very different, with a difference of nearly 1.4 points, 7.7 for The Dreamer and 6.3 for The Wonderful Father. In terms of total box office, The Wonderful Father has accumulated $62.45 million, and the screening time is nearly 2 weeks, but The Dreamer has $24.75 million on the first day of its premiere, which is more than 1/3 of the total of the former. Moreover, The Wonderful Father has more screens than The Dreamer, but it is completely irresistible. In all aspects, it is far surpassed. Therefore, it is not difficult to foresee that The Dreamer will rely on its excellent reputation and the popularity of the screening. The more box office it harvests in the next month or so, this medium-invested movie is likely to make a huge profit, and the North American landing point is at least more than $170 million, and perhaps it can break through $200 million with a little effort. Moreover, this is also a warning to the rising cost of film production. More investment does not necessarily mean more profit, but because of the increase in production risks, it will suffer a great failure. The media's scramble to report on it quickly made The Daydreamer the focus of audiences and fans. With so many praises and discussions, reporters and paparazzi naturally would not miss this great opportunity. Since director Lyman rarely takes the initiative to accept interviews, and does not necessarily have the time to be wasted by these people, they all focus on the other central figure of the film, the pursuit of Jim Carrey. In the past, when being ignored by the media, I would be afraid of being out of date, but once being pursued, I would feel that I can't get tired of it. Perhaps this is the contradiction that an actor has in common. Anyway, this is the situation of Jim Carrey now. Suddenly, his life is full of flashbulbs. On the streets, in restaurants, and even in private homes, whether driving or participating in various activities, paparazzi are indispensable. These people seem to be everywhere, all pervasive, chasing and asking all kinds of questions. Of course, this kind of life is not unfamiliar to Jim Carrey, and he himself is also under the instructions of the economic team to cooperate as much as possible to increase his exposure. The popularity of the movie is only temporary, and it must not be wasted. Therefore, facing the interview, Jim Carrey tried his best to maintain his demeanor, carefully answer, and not step into traps. He knew that his every word and action would be magnified by the media, and many people would be happy to see his jokes. He also avoided answering some sharp questions, otherwise, it would probably backfire, and he would be criticized for what he should be praised for. Don't look at these people always showing a flattering smile and circling around, but these people are not just like this to him. Whoever has the topic will be circling around, and the order of before and after cannot be wrong. And for the sake of topic, these people can do anything, even deliberately distort the facts. However, Jim Carrey clearly understands this point. This is a compulsory course for an actor who wants to survive in Hollywood, how to deal with the media. At the same time, Daydreamer is still reaping box office profits through the North American market, and the audience's enthusiasm for watching movies has not diminished after the first day. After the next 2 days, the box office data of Daydreamer was officially announced. Among them, it earned $22.45 million on Saturday and $22.84 million on Sunday, with a total of $70.04 million in the 3 days of the weekend. This once again proves how broad the market for comedy movies is. It is no wonder that comedy works have always participated in the film genre of small-scale bets over the years. The box office of $70.04 million in the first week is naturally very easy to win the weekly box office championship, surpassing the second place The Bravefather by $32.42 million, which is simply a crushing without any challenge. Time quickly entered the second week of the release of Daydreamer. Although Blue Butterfly Pictures has confidence in the film and is speeding up the distribution operation as much as possible, the number of screens for Daydreamer in the second week has only increased by less than 750. This is mainly a matter of communication and copying. It is impossible to spread too much in just 2 or 3 days. The increase is already a little preparation for Blue Butterfly Pictures. Of course, the market potential of a movie always has its limits, and it can't be done casually. Anyway, even if the number of screenings is increased, the daily box office performance of the film in the second week will not increase. After all, the audience base will always gradually decrease over time. This is why industry insiders often use the formula that the box office of a movie in the first 3 weeks can basically account for about 70% of the entire movie box office to predict the box office. However, both Lemon and Blue Butterfly Pictures are very satisfied with the current situation. After all, it will not lose money. Chapter 528 Sahara Strange Soldier. Subscribe, vote. March 27th, Friday. After 7 days of screening, the box office of The Dreamer has accumulated to $104.76 million. However, compared with the first week, the box office of the film fell by more than 40% in the second week, and it continued to decline every day. Of course, this is a factor of market regulation, not that the audience abandoned the movie. After all, the score of The Dreamer in the rating agency within IMDb is still relatively stable, and the recognition is still there. As the holiday approaches, the audience base has increased, and The Dreamer has gradually risen slightly. On Friday, it won $9.34 million, $9.87 million on Saturday, and $10.56 million on Sunday. The next Monday, it earned a total of $47.64 million, continuing to sit firmly at the top of the weekly box office, while the second place became The Boys and Girls in Black and White with $34.48 million. Up to this time, The Dreamer has been released for 10 days and has earned $128.7 million. However, just as the film continued to move towards the $200 million mark in North America, when Lyman was busy setting the script outline for the new film, he was suddenly invited to attend the premiere of Paramount's film. Lyman couldn't refuse, so he agreed. On April 8th, Paramount's ambitious work Sahara held a grand premiere. You know, the investment in this movie is as high as $160 million, including pre-promotion, adapted from a very successful series of books, and it has a huge amount of traffic. Director predecessor has many years of experience in the industry, plus Matthew McConaughey, whose acting career has been quite successful in recent years, plays the male lead, and Spanish girl Penelope Cruz plays the female lead. Her boyfriend at the time, Tom Cruise, helped out. Otherwise, if you don't have some connections, you can't squeeze into this first-line masterpiece. In short, the lineup of this movie looks very reliable. It's a pity that Paramount wanted to make this movie into a series of masterpieces, but it didn't expect to fall into a big fall. Even in another 10 years, when it comes to the collection of works with enough losses to be on the list, there must be a place for Sahara. Well, after deducting the film's revenue from the costs of publicity and shooting, the total loss was $121 million. According to Lyman's perception of watching the film on site, the quality of the film is actually qualified, but the cost is too high, and the plot is a bit outdated, and can't keep up with the audience's aesthetic taste. For example, 20 years ago, Indiana Jones was a big hit at the box office. 20 years later, continuing the same routine, just slightly changing the skin, how could it be accepted by the new generation of audiences? If the budget is lowered, maybe it can still make some money, but with an initial investment of $160 million, doesn't it mean that the global box office must exceed $400 million to make a profit at the box office? Maybe the offline market is very profitable, and Paramount may feel that a box office of $300 million is enough, and it seems that it is not difficult for a first-line blockbuster to have a box office of $300 million, but the quality of this movie can only be said to be qualified, and it is not excellent at all. The combination of handsome men, beautiful women and a group of veteran actors is not always so effective. Even the real shots in the desert are very textured. The performance of the male protagonist played by Matthew is not bad, but the handling of the story has great flaws. For example, the large-scale battles with combat helicopters, cannons, bombs, etc. weaken the presence of the protagonists. It is purely for the sake of spending money. On the contrary, the male protagonist has been portrayed as strong, intelligent, and brave. He has been strong in many dangers, but in the large-scale gun bombing, it gives people the feeling that no matter how powerful the male protagonist is, he will be afraid of firepower and firearms. This kind of protagonist is too depressing. Let's talk about the female protagonist, a scientist. Cruz's beauty is not intellectual. Although she is a national treasure level beauty in Spain, her status in Hollywood is far worse. Although her beauty is still moving, what Hollywood lacks the least is vases. Before participating in this film, the impression that this actress could give to American audiences was probably only various gossips, promoting her love with her boyfriend Tom Cruise, which is obviously not something an actress particularly needs, because it has fallen behind due to excessive hype. Moreover, her image in the film is not to explore Cruz's charm, but to show some humanitarian spirit and kindness. What makes people feel even more stupid is that, because the film has to be shot in the desert and the environment is bad, Cruz always has a disheveled image, which is simply a waste. If vases are needed, why cover up the beauty of vases? Lyman couldn't figure it out. After all, I have never heard that Cruz has any acting skills. The acting skills of this Spanish girl can be said to be a luxury. Even if she tries her best to perform, it is counterproductive. In other words, the unsatisfactory box office of Sahara is caused by many factors. The lack of novelty in the plot is the biggest shortcoming, and the other is that the cost is too high. Anyway, this blockbuster of Paramount is quite inexplicable and self-contradictory, but for Lyman, this may be good news. The worse the box office performance of Sahara Soldier, the less pressure it will have on Daydreamer. But even so, relying on Paramount's strong publicity and promotion capabilities, the film still won $28.76 million on the first day of its release, and it topped the list, which still affected the box office of Daydreamer. However, Daydreamer has already passed the most popular period of the box office, and now it can only earn 4 or 5 million box office per day, but with the addition of Sahara Soldier and other new films, it has dropped directly to 3.54 million. But just when Paramount breathed a sigh of relief and felt that the first day performance of the film was acceptable and there was still room to recover the investment, on the second day of the film's screening, the box office performance began to decline. Although the decline was less than 10% of the overall, the movie had just been released. It would be fine if it didn't rise, but it couldn't even stabilize the box office. Yes, even if Paramount's media resources are powerful, it can't stop people from giving bad reviews, or really control the audience from complaining. After the movie was released, the audience was full of expectations, but when they went to the theater, they saw such a blockbuster with a cliched setting, and an awkward plot. There were even some media that criticized it very bluntly, saying that Sahara was a farce with a pale and boring plot. Therefore, on the first day of the release of Sahara, which had more than 2,500 theaters, the attendance rate dropped sharply from 70% on the first day as the audience and fans did not buy it. 3 days later, the total box office in the first week was less than 60 million. It was because there were no strong competitors that it became the weekly box office champion, but the impending loss was seen by many industry insiders. As for the Dreamers, it stabilized the situation later. The total box office has exceeded 140 million. After a few weeks of long-term release, it may try to break through 200 million. Even if it fails, the movie will definitely make a profit at the box office. Chapter 529 Catherine, subscriptions, votes. Sahara failed. Even if Paramount wanted to ignore it, the facts are facts, and they cannot be avoided by pretending not to see it. Whether it is a big drop in the box office or the audience's reputation is not as good as expected, it declares that the project has failed. Even the critics do not like this movie, and they are extremely sarcastic, which completely proves that the film cannot go the way of the awards season. Perhaps it can be said that Sahara is almost bathed in criticism, and the box office is declining every day. For this reason, a lot of bad things have happened. Every failure of a big work requires someone to take responsibility, and this time, Paramount fired 2 production executives. But this approach can hardly make up for anything. It is just done for the shareholders of the board of directors. They need an explanation. On the other hand, the original author of the novel also jumped out and sued Paramount in court with the joint publishing house because Paramount did not perform the adaptation contract well. Because the project failed, the original author could not get his share of the box office revenue, but the contract did not stipulate that it was a profit share. Therefore, as long as there was a box office, the profit should be shared, but Paramount believed that the loss part did not need to be shared. If there was no money, what should be shared? The two sides insisted on their own opinions and quarreled for a long time, but this kind of lawsuit usually would not have a result. The court would most likely let the two sides reconcile privately. It was not a solution to drag it out. Of course, these are all small things. The real big thing is that for a project that is eager to sell well at the box office and realize a series of profits, Sahara Soldier has no future. What's more tragic is that in terms of stopping losses, Paramount has done everything it can, not giving actors, directors, and even the behind-the-scenes production team shooting bonuses, reducing publicity expenses, and quickly selling the copyright. After calculation, the loss amount will still be more than 120 million, which is a nightmare for the already embarrassed Paramount. In other words, if Paramount relied only on production business in the first half of the year, it would have lost more than 300 million yuan. It produced 7 movies in the first half of the year, 4 of which were failures. If it didn't have distribution business and other profit sources, it would not even be able to maintain a balance between income and expenditure. This is indeed the case. Paramount is now so weak that it can't even maintain the dignity of the Big Six, and it can't even compare with most of the second-tier studios. The disastrous failure of Sahara Soldier made Paramount pay more attention to the new project Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Shirley Lansing even called to urge Lyman to complete the preparatory work as soon as possible. On April 22nd, Lyman walked out of the elevator of Paramount, and director Tony greeted him with a smile. "Mr. Last, the actors are all here." Lyman followed Tony and asked casually, "Are the locations, props, and costumes ready?" "Yes, they are all ready." "Okay, let's confirm the actors too. Paramount is really pushing us." Tony agreed with a smile. Then, the two walked into a reception room, where a beautiful woman was sitting. She had long black flowing hair, a pair of charming amber eyes, and an elegant demeanor of a British lady, beautiful and sexy. This woman was Catherine Zeta-Jones, who was specially selected by Lyman, and was very suitable for the role of Jane Smith. She is 36 years old this year. Although she has been practicing classical ballet since she was a child and is now a wife, she still maintains a good figure. Of course, her star road is a little dim, and she is not doing well in Hollywood because she has too few resources. In the original Time and Space, after marrying Michael Douglas, a famous old playboy in the circle, she almost semi-retired, occasionally taking a few bad movies, but she didn't make any name for herself. It happened that when the casting list of Mr. and Mrs. Smith was handed over to Lyman together with the audition performance after 2 rounds of auditions, he saw her at a glance, so he called her agent to inquire about the schedule. Of course, Catherine, who has semi-retired to take care of her children at home, is very free. After receiving the invitation for the project, she quickly rushed to Hollywood. Catherine had heard of Lyman's deeds and immediately stood up and greeted the two men when they came in. After some pleasantries, Lyman started to discuss the role with her. "Miss Catherine, I've seen your audition performance, and I think your image is a good match for the role." "Thank you." Lyman is now very famous in the circle, and as a British actress, Catherine has no one to support her, and she is not doing well in Hollywood. This is also the reason why she got married early. If she had a successful career as an actress, she might not have married so easily, and she would not have come out to take care of the children at home. When she heard that she might become the heroine of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, she was of course very happy. "Thank you, Mr. Last, for giving me this opportunity. I will work hard." Lemon waved his hand. Your role this time requires training as soon as possible to adapt to firearms and fighting performances. There are a lot of such shots in the filming. Although Catherine Zeta-Jones looks very ladylike when she is quiet, her dancing skills have never fallen behind. She is very resilient and agile, and can easily perform many difficult postures, not to mention her fiery and wild beauty in The Mask of Zorro, which is more suitable for Jane Smith than Angelina Jolie. Okay, that's it for now. Remember to ask your agent to come over to discuss the salary. Also, come over tomorrow to meet your partner and get familiar with the filming. Lemon waved his hand to let Catherine leave, and then discussed with Tony, who do you think will be the male lead of Mr. and Mrs. Smith? This role must be a good match with Catherine, and must have appeal and a positive image. Well, the combination of a handsome man and a beautiful woman is definitely pleasing to the eye, and the audience will accept it. Tony personally hosted the role audition. Lemon basically did not intervene, except to remove Brad Pitt as a candidate in advance. Therefore, in terms of actor familiarity, Tony should be more familiar with the audition style. He thought for a while before suggesting Pierce Brosnan. Bond is famous enough, do you want to confirm him? Pierce? Isn't he going to quit the 007 series? Lemon seemed to have some impression of this matter. Yes, I heard that the 007 series is going to change the male lead. If he continues to participate, his salary is too high and the filming risk is too great. His coming here for an audition this time may also mean that he is going to quit. Lemon thought of this person and felt that he was not bad. He was famous and popular with the audience. After all, he was the Agent Bond, which was a kind of sentiment. The most important thing was that his image was suitable. He was used to acting in action movies, so he must be familiar with guns and could adapt to the role as soon as possible. After thinking for a moment, Lemon ordered, then let him come tomorrow. Chapter 530 Preparation completed. Subscription. Vote. For actors, almost no one would refuse the invitation issued in the name of Lemon. Even the popular movie star Agent Bond is no exception. At least, after receiving the news, Pierce Brosnan rushed to the Paramount headquarters building with his agent the next morning. Soon, an inconspicuous black business car parked up, and Brosnan hurried upstairs. About half an hour later, several main creators came to the office. It was also at this time that Catherine Zeta-Jones and Pierce Brosnan really read the entire script of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and understood what kind of story the movie told. Of course, to be honest, the plot of the script is not complicated at all, and it is even a bit disappointing, but the two British actors can feel that the market prospects of this film may be good. After all, isn't the 007 series also popular with the audience, and the audience can still support it? Moreover, Lemon is the leader of this project. In this case, even if there are some doubts, they will be quickly dispelled, and there is definitely no reason to refuse to act. Who doesn't know the ability of Lemon's works to promote people? In addition to discussing cooperation, the main creators of this meeting also slightly modified the role template according to the two actors' own situations, to make it more suitable for the image of the two actors. After reading the script, the two also made some comments at the right time. Anyway, what the two of them are very sure of is that with their current fame, if this project with an investment of more than 80 million can succeed, it will definitely bring a lot of career help. Afterwards, the two actors basically had no problem with the performance, and their agents were also instructed to try to get a good salary under the premise of establishing cooperation. This kind of work has nothing to do with Lemon, so it is better to let Paramount negotiate. Several people are still discussing the shooting of the script. As for Pierce Brosnan, he is somewhat unwilling to play the same type of role again, because the acting path is too narrow. In addition to agents, they are killers. Anyway, they can't do without the action field. Of course, because of Lemon, he still agreed. However, Lemon can also understand Brosnan's mentality. The other party almost lives in the image of Bond and can't get out. To put it bluntly, the audience is not willing to let him play non-action themes, and the acceptance is not high. Transformation is basically hellishly difficult. This is the shackles that the 007 series has brought to him. Just like Hugh Jackman left Wolverine, and 80% of the works he starred in would fail. His acting style has been fixed. However, if he does not star in the 007 series, who will recognize him? This kind of pros and cons cannot be avoided. Lyman said, don't be anxious about broadening your acting range. Many actors will encounter this kind of hurdle. If you rashly transform, and the project fails, won't it be more difficult? Lyman knows Brosnan's acting career. After leaving Bond, he failed to transform several times and finally had to return to the old way. Of course, Brosnan just thought about it. He would not refuse this project at all. He thought so after finishing Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And the negotiation of the salary of these two is not a problem. Lyman has a sufficient budget for this. Besides, Brosnan and Catherine are cheaper than the combination of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Even though Brad Pitt's career has not been smooth in recent years and he often works in the independent film circle, his salary will not be less than $10 million. As for Angelina Jolie, this actress who has been involved in scandals since Tomb Raider and has been plagued by various problems, her salary will definitely not be less than $8 million, and she may even ask for a share of the box office. But Catherine is not only more beautiful, but also has a better temperament. She only needs $4 million, which is a lot less. Yes, she has not produced any decent works in recent years, so her salary is not high, but it is still the foundation accumulated from several previous movies. Brosnan's salary is slightly higher. After all, he is very popular. His agent has obtained for him a condition of $8 million plus 3% of the North American box office revenue. Originally wanted to use a high basic salary to negate the box office revenue, but Brosnan refused, so he agreed. After all, he is worth the price. Give more, give more. The leading actor is in place, and Tony has also been selected for the remaining actors. Lyman is not too concerned about this aspect. After attending the production meeting, Lyman only occasionally focused on the Mr. and Mrs. Smith project in the following days. Most of his energy was spent on conceiving a new script, but Tony would report the progress of the work every day and communicate with him about various shooting details. A week later, the crew members of Mr. and Mrs. Smith had been confirmed, and the first $30 million of funds were quickly in place. In addition, Paramount paid close attention to this project, and the production cycle was carried out step by step without any delay. It is expected to be completed in mid-July and enter the post-production stage. In mid-April 2005, when Sahara Soldier continued to reduce the number of theaters, but still had no time to harvest any box office, Daydreamer was showing very well overseas. It achieved good results in Germany, the United Kingdom, France and other places. Although the film ultimately failed to break through $200 million in North America and only earned $187.5 million, it would not be trapped by the $200 million mark with the help of overseas markets. When the news came back to North America, Lyman immediately held a celebration party. After that, Lyman went to Digital Domain with the script for the new play. Since taking over, Lyman has indeed, as he said at the beginning, not interfered too much in the daily operations of the company. And this time, he also came with a mission, which was an opportunity for him to take the initiative, to give a project to Digital Domain to participate in the development. After going there, Scott Ross took Lyman to visit and understand the latest developments in the research and development of various technologies. Among them, CG rendering has made good progress and the cost has been further reduced, but the matching shooting system has not made much progress and still requires the participation of professional studios, which is still very cumbersome. However, technology research and development is not always achieved overnight, and Lyman understands it very well. If you only consider the use of visual effects in your project, it will cost at least $12 million. After Scott Ross carefully understood Lyman's needs, he said, the special effects are simply in the creation of the monsters. There are not many big scenes. If you save a little, more than $10 million should be enough. Well, the special effects work will be handed over to you. Implement this project as soon as possible. The next focus of Firefly Pictures is to produce this film. Well, don't worry. Scott was in a good mood. Firefly Pictures' film development direction has indeed added special effects work. This is a natural backing for the digital field, isn't it? Chapter 531, The Host, Subscriptions, Vote. It was a day in July 1997. A deliveryman accidentally found a large black shadow swimming rapidly in Lake Michigan. Later, he found that the black shadow was a strange creature that he had never seen before. It looked like half fish and half frog, with sharp teeth and strong aggressiveness, causing unprecedented disasters to the residents on both sides of the lake. In the warm yellow light and spacious study, Lyman thought for a moment and continued to perfect the script setting. This is Lyman's 8th film. He tried many themes before, and this time he chose a new direction. Monster genre film. Since Spielberg's Jaws in the 1970s, monster movies have always shown unparalleled box office appeal. And his movie is the benchmark monster genre film The Host from South Korea. A genre masterpiece that broke the highest box office record in South Korea and was watched by more than 13.01 million people. The total population of South Korea in 2006 was only more than 40 million. The film is suitable because the investment is not high. The special effects are concentrated on CG monsters and digital painting of the streets along the way, and more importantly, the background replacement is relatively easy and the shooting risk is small. You should know that the original version set a box office record for Korean films in the United States during its release in the United States without much publicity, and selling out the copyright in overseas regions. As for the river pollution problem reflected in it, the Great Lakes in the United States are also very serious. Because of the untreated sewage discharged by chemical plants in the early years, the heavy metal content in the Great Lakes was seriously exceeded, and the aquatic ecology was severely damaged. Until now, this problem has not been solved. The crew just chose Lake Michigan as the location for the film. Of course, there are many places to change in the film, such as the character creation and identity setting. The lawyer line is also added to introduce the local state government to deliberately escort the big taxpayers such as chemical plants, which enhances the dramatic conflict and depth of the film. Anyway, using monsters to criticize some social problems is the right direction to ensure the box office of monster movies. And this is just a matter of helping the digital field expand its business. After all, the original special effects shots actually have many flaws. The reason is that the funds were not enough, but this The Lake Monster by Lyman will obviously not have this problem. The special effects budget he gave is several times higher than the original version in order to enhance the visual enjoyment space and create a more textured special effects scene. After setting a framework for the outline and background of the script, Lyman immediately rushed to Firefly Pictures. First handed the script to the screenwriter department to continue writing, and then found Thomas. This guy has been very idle recently, and he needs to find something more to do. Well, it's good to be the co-producer of The Lake Monster. The preparation of the crew, shooting team and props, costumes, venues and other trivial matters can be handed over to him. Of course, when Thomas heard the task assigned by Lyman, he had an expression of as expected. I'm used to it. Then Lyman went to discuss the production budget with Joseph. He did a little calculation and found that the cost of shooting the entire The Lake Monster would be around 40 million to 45 million. The original version only cost 10 million, which is why the special effects in it are said to have a bit of a plastic taste. I remember that there was a scene in the movie where the monster was burned by fire, but the rendering was not enough, and it went through the camera directly. The flames were quite fake, and the place where the monster was burned did not change at all. In addition, labor in the United States is very expensive. If there are a large number of extras, it will be a big scene, and it is impossible to shoot directly on the street. After listening to the idea, Joseph's heart moved. According to Lyman, the development of this project has great potential. Although he is definitely not good at shooting and producing directly, he still has market vision. Just imagining the scene of the water monster coming ashore and killing people, it feels that there will be a market. If it is shot well, the film will definitely be a hit, because the selling point of this type of film is the monster. If there is a reasonable explanation for the ins and outs of how the monster was created, it can basically make sense. It doesn't matter if the plot is simple. This is the case with Lyman's project. The chemical plant's indiscriminate discharge of sewage caused excessive heavy metals in the lake, which gave birth to a deformed monster. There are basically no loopholes in the plot, and the performances of the protagonists are also wonderful. As for the actors, Lyman has some candidates. He said directly, the grandfather who shot to save his granddaughter and attracted the monster's attention will be played by Morgan Freeman. Although there are fewer scenes, there is still room for performance. As for the male protagonist's delivery man sister, you can find Dakota Fanning and ask if they have time. If the role is suitable, Lemon prefers to cooperate with actors who are familiar with each other. Then, the male protagonist's father can be played by Michael Caine. He is old enough and has a good image. It is just right to play an old man who is a little confused and has a bad memory. The roles of these three are not too many, and it is estimated that more than $3 million can be done together. Moreover, the role of these roles is to highlight the male protagonist. The psychological transformation of a deliveryman from cowardice to strength is a manifestation of an American family encountering a monster. Of course, Lemon couldn't think of any suitable person for the most important role of the male protagonist and the lawyer who reported the pollution. Cage Tom Cruise's pay is too high, which is not what this kind of film needs. Lemon's idea of special effects movies is similar to Cameron's. Neither of them thinks that they need to rely on the individual performance of the actors. There is no need. This is also the reason why Cameron's works never cooperate with first-line movie stars. Special effects cost money. If big-name actors are hired, the profit margin will be greatly compressed, which will increase the risk. Notify the agency to screen. Lemon said, the pay of male actors around 30 years old cannot exceed $7 million. Okay, I'll contact you later. Joseph flipped through the work records and said, Dead Silence directed by James Wan has entered the final shooting stage, and the last $10 million has been transferred. In addition, the main actors of Mr. and Mrs. Smith co-produced with Paramount are receiving some training, and will soon enter the shooting stage. Director Tony has called to inquire about the plan. Okay, remember to ask Blake to go to the Mr. and Mrs. Smith crew to take charge of production. I'll call Shirley Lansing to explain. Anyway, we are well prepared. Just shoot according to the script. As for Dead Silence, you go and talk to Lyman and ask them to come up with a publicity plan in advance and work out a reasonable release schedule to contact the theaters. I mean, it would be best to be around October when there is less competition. Chapter 532 City of Sin. Subscribe, vote. Today, Firefly Pictures is booming. As the company's operating president, Benjamin Joseph enjoys his fulfilling and busy days and is very motivated. Unlike his previous life at Columbia UK, he didn't know what to do and had no special goals. Moreover, Lemon promised to reward him with management options in the future for his series of contributions to the company. Although this part of the equity cannot be transferred, and only during the term of office can he get dividends every year. In this way, his income is definitely at the top of the pyramid even among the Hollywood studios, not to mention the connections brought by this right. And Lemon also wants to use this method to bind the company's management. In the future, Garsha, Blake and even Jonathan Nolan can also get equity dividends. This is actually the development of a kind of interest republic. A few days later, the project of the Lake Monster was officially established in the Film and Television Association. Several location personnel went to the 4 states where Lake Michigan flows: Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan, to find several suitable filming locations. Although Lake Michigan is very vast, we only need to capture a small part of the river. We don't need to capture the whole picture. In order to save money, we don't go to places that are too remote. It is best to have towns with more complete supporting facilities around them. We will give priority to them. The other scenes can be set in the studio. It is very convenient to contact Warner Studios for rental matters. In addition, the places that cost a little more and cannot save money should be the professional studios that must be built to cooperate with the motion capture technology. As for the performers of Monsters, the most powerful motion capture actor is of course Andy Serkis. Lemon also asked the crew to send an invitation. After all, the role of Gollum in The Lord of the Rings has such a varied and rich expression that is unforgettable. Another point is that there are not many movies that need motion capture actors nowadays. Andy Serkis usually has no work, so he agreed very readily. The salary is $850,000, which is very fair. This is actually the salary standard. When he was filming King Kong, the monster scenes in The Lake Monster are much less than those in King Kong, so there are not so many. Of course, Peter Jackson's remake, which took a year and a half to make, has been scheduled for December this year and is now busy with post-production. When the news of the preparation of Lyman's new project spread to the outside world, the media also reported it one after another. For a while, there were headlines such as Lyman's new film is suspected to tell stories like The Venice Monster, or it was a guess about who the actors in the new film were, or it was reported whether Paramount or Warner would be chosen for distribution and production. However, these reports did not cause any follow-up, because Firefly Pictures did not pay any attention to it at all, and soon, the attention was diverted. In other words, in the film market in April, in addition to Sahara Soldier, which was a hot topic, although it was not a good aspect, there was another film with a unique image style, Sin City, which was also the focus of the audience's attention. The adaptation of this work was created by Frank Miller, the comic master who redefined Batman. Its atmosphere and style are unique in the entire comic industry. Director Robert Rodriguez, Quentin's good friend, shot this feeling very well. Actually, the process is very interesting. One day in 2004, Robert accidentally saw the comic book of Sin City and thought it was so cool. He wanted to make a movie. He had such a passion in his heart, so he went to find the copyright owner Frank. After asking around, Frank found out that this guy was a young man who always made low-budget movies. The early Killing trilogy series, including the debut Killing Elegy, all took the same approach, which was a family workshop style shooting. The actors and the shooting team were all taken by his relatives. That was so cost-saving. The debut cost only $7,000. So Frank immediately refused, believing that this guy could not shoot a high-investment work like black and white silhouettes. You have no money and no experience. But Robert did not give up and kept pestering him, saying that he could guarantee that the movie would be consistent with the style of the comic book. I came here for this, and asked his good friend Quentin to help support the platform. They worked together on a movie from dusk till dawn, and they became friends since then. Later, Quentin was itching to direct a short scene in Sin City, which was the scene where the man with a gun barrel stuck in his head was joking with the driver. Although this movie has a unique style, it has gone to extremes. As the saying goes, those who love it very much, and those who don't like it can't watch it at all. So the box office is not explosive, of course. Compared with the production cost of only $40 million, it has been released in North America for more than 2 weeks and has accumulated more than $48 million. The basic landing point will be around $80 million. In addition to overseas distribution and the flying channels, the profit margin is very good. It is not difficult for the studio to share 30 or 40 million for each link. Anyway, Dimension Pictures is happy. By analogy, Miramax is not so happy. Because of some hesitation, they did not strongly support the filming of this movie. Instead, they gave a small support for Quentin's face in exchange for a small part of the film's revenue. If they had known that the film would be popular, they would definitely not let the opportunity go. After all, Robert was strictly inclined to Miramax's production at that time. Unfortunately, the investment in the film was too high, and they themselves were unwilling. On April 25th, the preparation stage of The Crew of the Lake Monster was relatively smooth. Lyman was busy for more than an hour before leaving the studio to return to Firefly Pictures. At about 10 o'clock in the morning, Thomas walked into the office with several reports in his hand. Lyman, the audition list and information of the actors are all here. Lyman took the screened role actors, scanned them quickly, and then noticed a name. Matthew McConaughey? Lyman frowned slightly. After starring in Sahara, this actor's career can be said to have fallen to the bottom. In the original Time and Space, he was even down and out to take on absurd comedies such as The Bachelor of the Lay Family. From often pairing with second-tier stars to hanging out with various small actors, and after the comedy box office was still not good, he completely disappeared from the audience's sight until he returned with The Lincoln Lawyer 5 years later. Speaking of which, this person is also unlucky enough. He obviously has no lack of acting skills and is handsome, but the result is that Sahara directly declared a collapse. After recalling all this, Lyman asked Thomas, "What do you think of him?" Oh, you mean Matthew McConaughey. He did a good job in the audition, with a bit of a bad attitude. Thomas had been staying in France for some time, and he didn't know that Matthew was badly criticized by the American media. The crew blamed each other, and basically no one likes him now. Is that so? Then you can discuss the salary with his agent. Maybe he will become the male lead of the new show. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533 Matthew McConaughey. Subscribe, vote. Matthew McConaughey has been very upset recently, but he is still immersed in the joy of love. Although the movie Sahara caused his career to decline seriously, it made his relationship with Penelope Cruz come true. Matt Damon chose to break up with his girlfriend Winona Ryder when he was filming with Cruz. Tom Cruise also chose to join hands with Cruz after divorcing Nicole Kidman. It seems that this Spanish beauty does have a charm that these Hollywood male stars cannot resist. Perhaps this also represents trouble. In a mansion in Burbank, Matthew McConaughey is exercising. He liked sports very much in his early years and often went surfing on the sea in his spare time. At this time, his girlfriend Penelope is answering the phone on the side, looking a little angry. After hanging up the phone, she said to Matthew, "I don't have any film offers recently, how about you?" Cruz paced slowly with some unhappiness. She was originally an outsider and had no foundation in Hollywood. Basically, if it weren't for her previous boyfriends, she wouldn't even have any exposure, let alone someone looking for her to act. The reason is that no one supports her. Just being beautiful without achievements is not enough. At this time, Matthew McConaughey had several successful works in a row, and he also acted with Kevin Spacey. Some media praised his acting skills. It will be fine after a while. Matthew was still running on the treadmill, smiling helplessly. We have to avoid the failure of Sahara Raiders. Now he is still very optimistic, thinking that failure once is nothing. It's nothing more than a reduction in salary, but he doesn't know that the evaluation of him by industry insiders has plummeted to the bottom. Nonsense. A blockbuster with a production budget of over 100 million. Whoever fails must bear the responsibility. Tom Cruise, Cage, or Leo would be afraid of encountering this. And they would be extremely cautious in accepting the film. After all, Hollywood is somewhat superstitious and realistic, and they don't want to give losers any chances. This is why, although he looks handsome and has good acting skills, he hasn't met any good roles for several years after this time. After a few years, when he is over 40, he has to act like his father. He has become an acting school and can't rely on his image to make a living. However, at this time, he has not realized the seriousness of the problem. He has to experience it himself. He will taste the feeling of being rejected 90% of the time and looking like a bad drama 10% of the time. But Penelope is not as optimistic as him and is very depressed. She finally got the chance to play the leading role in a blockbuster movie with $1 billion investment, but the box office was not ideal. How could she be so unlucky? The failure of the movie cannot be blamed on the actors. After all, the actors are only one part of the whole work. If you really want to blame, the producer or director is the main person responsible. But this is the way the world is, and it is normal for actors to take the blame. Matthew McConaughey comforted her. "It's okay. You'll get through it. It's the same for everyone." He really did get through it in the future. He starred in The Lincoln Lawyer, Dallas Buyers Club, and finally got the big drama Interstellar. Penelope was still in no mood. She sighed. Alas, it's because he doesn't have the support of directors. Look at Leonardo. Director Martin and Cameron all admire him. The director has a lot of connections. Even his good friend Tobey Maguire was recommended to Hollywood. And Eva Green, I heard that her salary is already the price of a first-line actress. It's only been a few years. Without Lemon, how could she have so many resources? Matthew McConaughey smiled self-deprecatingly. Why compare with them? We're already luckier than most actors. After he finished speaking, the two were about to go out to the Actors Guild to see if there were any audition opportunities when they heard the doorbell ring. As soon as Matthew opened the door, He found that it was the agent from his own Utah agency who was always nowhere to be seen. This was the case with a big name agent. He had a bunch of actors under him, but he would never take care of everything. Not to mention that Matthew was just a second tier actor now. Oh, no, not even a second tier actor. Originally, Morlock didn't want to pay attention to him. After all, he had lost the value of continuing to train him, but who knew that there would be another turn of events? Are you free now? Come out with me. What's the matter? Matthew McConaughey was a little confused. I got you an audition opportunity for a project directed by Lyman. He provided the list of actors as required. As for the others, it was hard to say. But he had submitted several candidates, and only this person responded, so he had to hurry up to win him over. Matthew McConaughey tried to hide his excitement. Then what should I pay attention to? No, let's try it first. Matthew McConaughey's family is not bad, and he is not a spendthrift. He has saved a lot of money over the years, but he is an actor, and is used to a glamorous life in front of people. He has been hiding at home recently, and is not satisfied. When he heard such good news, you can imagine how he felt. But he was not particularly flustered. He changed his clothes, and took care of himself, before saying goodbye to Penelope. Penelope was stunned and only nodded, her eyes full of envy. Sitting in the car, Agent Morlock asked some strange questions while driving, as if he wanted to know what kind of relationship he had with Lyman last, or how he knew him. Matthew McConaughey was a little confused. Of course he knew the name of director Lyman, his movies were very popular, and he was the boss of a film and television company, but how did he know him? Thinking back carefully, he had seen him at the Golden Globe Gala before and said hello, but it was just a casual act, and no one would take the polite words seriously. However, Morlock took his silence as a sign that they really knew each other, and was happy in his heart. After the box office of Sahara Soldier was not ideal, he thought he would give up on this person, but he didn't expect that he would have a way to make a comeback. A black Mercedes-Benz business car stopped downstairs of Firefly Pictures. The two informed the front desk and were taken to an office on the third floor by a staff member. Knock on the door and enter. Lemon was sitting in the boss chair and making a phone call. He gestured with his hand, but Morlock turned around and left with great tact. Matthew McConaughey waited for a moment, and then Lemon put down the phone and said, "Sit down first. Let's talk." After Lemon finished speaking, he carefully looked at the handsome middle-aged man in front of him. At this time, he had a well-proportioned figure, and he didn't have the crazy of being so thin that he lost his shape to play a drug addict. Of course, his transformation was not like other idol actors who planned for their future careers. This one had to change. If he didn't, he wouldn't have any acting offers. You know, when Matthew first debuted, he was called the younger version of Paul Newman. He always played idle male protagonists and romantic playboys. At least he could play handsome roles. He does have the capital. Chapter 534 Audition, Subscriptions, Votes Required. This was the first time the two met formally. It was different from the previous fake communication. Because they were talking about movies, the topic was easier to develop. However, Lemon was not in a hurry to confirm the cooperation at the beginning. Since he mentioned audition, of course it was for the audition. In the past timeline, this person should be a late bloomer. He suddenly became popular when he was old. It was also when he was in his 40s and was about to gradually fade out of the fans' field of vision that he suddenly rose up, and then his career was like a cheat. He was an Oscar winner and became the leading actor with a global audience of over 700 million with Interstellar. These two combined, neither honor was easy, let alone all of them. Moreover, it was only from the actor's resume that Lemon knew that Matthew McConaughey graduated from the University of Texas with a major in drama performance. This guy is a professional. The threshold for actors in Hollywood seems to be very low, as if anyone can enter, but in fact, those who can really stand out are almost all those who have studied systematically, and even if they don't have the opportunity at the beginning, they will take the initiative to seek further study. After all, a good appearance is indeed a good stepping stone, but an actor who lacks acting experience will definitely not go far. Similarly, even if Lemon has achieved good results in Hollywood, he still cannot be too casual about his own work. Therefore, how can the selection of the actor who has the most scenes not be meticulous? The minimum point of sending out an invitation is that this person can complete the performance task, and Matthew McConaughey has enough experience and qualifications. Another advantage that impressed Lyman is that The Lake Monster is a special effects movie after all. The budget for actors is not high and the proportion is very low. Lyman hopes that more money can be spent on the Blade. High pay is basically not considered, but he also wants to be more popular with the audience and have appeal. Matthew in front of him is just satisfied. Your image needs to change. A messy hairstyle and a baseball cap to cover your forehead. Lyman suddenly said. What? Matthew McConaughey didn't know how to answer what Lyman said for a moment, so he had to ask, is it required by the role? Yeah. Can I know what the story is? The story is very simple. Delivery man Gray saw a monster in the lake and ran to tell the police, but no one believed him, and he was considered mentally ill. Then he went to find a lawyer and wanted to sue several chemical plants, but he was beaten up. In the end, many people found the monster, and many people died for this. It sounds good. Matthew McConaughey flattered him a little. Well, you are a deliveryman now. After being ridiculed for having mental problems, you feel depressed. Can you perform? Lyman really started to audition. This is almost the part with the biggest emotional changes in the movie, from the fear and panic of seeing the monster at the beginning, to the depression that no one understands, and the dissatisfaction with the police. Matthew McConaughey also knew that his next performance would determine whether he would stay or go. He immediately cheered up, took a deep breath, closed his eyes and thought for a moment, and substituted a little feeling before opening his eyes to perform a part. His performance was far from mature, and his emotions were mostly superficial, but his body language was in place. Perhaps because he was trained in acting, his eye acting was not bad, and the anger could be seen in his eyes. It's okay. Matthew's momentum suddenly dropped, and he became a calm handsome guy again, but his somewhat uneasy pupils revealed his thoughts. This made Lyman want to laugh, so he said, you need to sacrifice a little bit of your appearance for this movie. It's best to get a darker tan dry skin and add a few small scars on your hands, showing the temperament of physical labor for years of moving and delivering goods, and also toughness. Don't worry, I will do it. Matthew, who was sitting opposite Lyman, nodded in affirmation. He didn't think there was anything wrong with changing his image to adapt to the role. As an actor, he learned to find ways to get closer to the role. Since they talked about the role, Lyman probably recognized Matthew McConaughey in his heart, and then took out the script for him to better think about the role, and unconsciously continued to talk about the topic of acting. As Lyman introduced more details about the filming of The Lake Monster, Matthew McConaughey gradually realized that this project had great potential. In any case, at least Lyman himself was working towards a box office hit, and reminded him to adapt to the green screen shooting without physical objects. The two chatted in the office for more than an hour before Lyman said, okay, go back and prepare first, and let your agent come to discuss the salary. Matthew McConaughey said goodbye and left, repeating that he would definitely change his image according to the requirements of the role, and would also go out more to adapt to the upcoming filming. He took the script out of the office, very excited, and after seeing his agent Morlock, he couldn't wait to tell him about the smooth audition and the salary issue. Morlock said, leave it to me, you go back and think about the script, and don't slack off. Matthew McConaughey was sent back home, and Penelope was still waiting. Then he shared his joy again, seeing the movie script in Matthew's hand, with a signed confidentiality agreement. Penelope asked indirectly whether the project needed any actresses. Matthew did not ask, shaking his head. But now, Penelope was unhappy, thinking that her boyfriend had no heart for her at all, and only cared about herself. Both of them were hindered in their careers because of the pitfall of Sahara Soldier, and then you hooked up with Lyman in the blink of an eye. Why didn't you pull her in when you had the chance? To be honest, this was completely unwarranted anger. Maybe after a few days of calming down, Penelope will figure it out. This project doesn't have to be played by Matthew, and he didn't bring money into the group. So what position does he have to recommend other actors? But today's emotional changes were too great. Penelope was very unbalanced, and seeing that Matthew did nothing, and didn't even mention it, she immediately left with a frown. Matthew McConaughey was also a little confused, thinking, what does this mean? Well, The relationship that had just been together for less than half a month had a crack. In fact, even if there was no such thing, the two would not last long. In the original time and space, they broke up after living together for more than half a year. The reason is that Penelope Cruz is an extremely emotional woman. She falls in love quickly and leaves it quickly. Not to mention that she has no intention of settling down and getting married. But Matthew is a playful person, but once a relationship is established, he wants a stable personality. The two have a disagreement on this point. Of course, this is all a story for later. Chapter 535 Mads. Subscription. Vote. Scott, its image needs to be a little deformed, and all the organs on its surface can be distorted, exaggerated, and completely inconsistent. Do you understand what I mean? A collection of aquatic organisms? Yes, lean towards that direction, and the image must have a weird texture. After all, the monster was born from a heavily polluted heavy metal river. Okay, Lemon, we will come up with a new concept map. Is there a specific time plan? If you need to show the highest end visual effects on the market, it will take at least 2 or 3 months, and it is very expensive. Of course, you actually understand this aspect. Don't worry, funding is not a problem. That's good. I will mobilize personnel to the lake monster project as soon as possible. In the Office of Digital Domain, Lemon and Scott outlined the special effects required for the movie bit by bit. At the same time, I don't know how many monster concept maps were scrapped. After all, the script says that it is half fish and half frog, but in fact, the shaping process still needs to add a lot of details, and Lemon wants to find many shadows of aquatic organisms in this monster, so it is not an exaggeration to say that it is a collection. The two discussed for more than half an hour before they determined the details and work schedule in detail. Finally, after paying the startup capital of the special effects work with $5 million, Lemon returned to Firefly Pictures. Just after a break, Eva called again and asked about his location. After a while, Eva also came to Firefly Pictures. She was wearing a blue plaid shirt today and a pair of slender legs under jeans. There was a unique charm. Lemon smiled and said, "You were hesitant on the phone just now. Is there something?" Eva walked to Lemon's side, helped him massage his shoulders, and said, "There is a role for me, and the pay is quite high." "What project?" "The 007 series. The production executives of MGM and Columbia have sent invitations through CAA. The new Bond girl," Lemon said with a smile. In fact, he already knew which work it was. Casino Royale. The original Eva played Linda was quite charming. Unexpectedly, MGM still invited the new Bond to come. "Should I take it?" Eva asked. "What do you think?" Lemon asked back. "My agent team thinks it's good, and MGM may have invested a lot this time, so there is a lot of room for salary." "Then take it, but we can talk more. Also, the contract prohibits nude scenes, and doubles are not allowed. If they don't agree, forget it." "Stingy man," Eva whispered, "but I will ask for it this way. Generally speaking, first-line actresses can basically discuss various performance details with the producers, such as not acting in scenes that damage their image, such as bed scenes, nude scenes, kissing scenes, and even swearing. These can be directly prohibited. It is normal to modify the script and change the personality for this. As for the 007 series, no matter what, the foundation is still there. Even if the leading actors are changed, as long as the style of the film is still there will be no lack of audience support. For Eva, it is naturally suitable to maintain her status and value while having more achievements. However, when it comes to Casino Royale, Lemon suddenly has a candidate suitable for the role of the lawyer in the Lake Monster. He immediately called Johnson, "Help me find a Danish actor." Not long after, Eva left, with a blush on her face. Ding-ling-ling. The phone on the table rang, and the front desk said, "Chairman, the person you invited has arrived. Bring him up." The person who came was a 40-year-old actor named Mads Mikkelsen, who was hailed as the sexiest man in Denmark. When Lemon met him, he felt that he was very quiet, which was different from his previous screen image. He didn't talk much, and was obviously not good at socializing. The most outstanding work of this actor should be The Hunt, a story about a person's life being ruined by scandals, lies, and suspicions. It is full of negative energy. it makes people feel depressed. As for Lucas played by Mads Mikkelsen in it, it gave people an extremely heavy performance and was deeply memorable. Moreover, Mads has a good acceptance among the audience in the European market, not to mention the advantage of cheap pay. It can be said that the cost performance is super high. Therefore, when Eve mentioned the new project of 007, Lyman suddenly thought of this actor who was more eye-catching than the protagonist. His cold temperament and appropriate performance portrayed the image of good guy Rachev in detail. After greeting each other, Lyman handed over the script and said, "Well, Mr. Mads Mikkelsen, you can prepare first and try a scene directly later." Mads nodded silently. He still didn't understand why director Lyman took the initiative to find him. However, it didn't matter if he didn't understand. He was just an actor and just did his best. About half an hour later, Mads indicated that he had read the script. So Lyman randomly selected a scene. Mads controlled his emotions and read out the lines. "There is no doubt that your actions were blocked because the state government was deliberately protecting and supporting you. I will help you uncover the truth, but this matter needs to be carefully planned. It would be best if we could collect more direct evidence of serious pollution to prove that those chemical plants discharged waste chemical raw materials into Lake Michigan without treatment." Okay, that's enough. In the office, after listening to the dialogue scene where the protagonist entrusted the lawyer, Lyman knew that Mads would not speak with a heavy accent or American spoken English, and there was no big problem. He could recite the lines normally, so he nodded in approval. "You are fully capable of playing the role of a lawyer," Lyman affirmed first, and then saw that Mads was still listening quietly without any expression, and then he continued, "You have read the script, and you should also understand that the lawyer has few roles, so, do you have any ideas?" "I have no problem." Mads shook his head, obviously not minding being a supporting role, and it would be better if he had fewer roles. After all, he had never played a leading role in Hollywood, and he had few project resources. He was used to it. "Then, your salary may only be $800,000. If you really want to participate in this project, you also need to experience the work of a lawyer and try to understand this profession. Is there a problem?" "No problem." Mads still shook his head. However, Lyman was very satisfied. In this way, the main and supporting roles were almost determined, and the preparation work of the project was greatly accelerated. "Thank you for coming here today. If possible, let your agent sign the performance contract as soon as possible." Chapter 536 Sponsorship, Subscriptions, Vote. In reality, Mads Mikkelsen's star journey can't be said to be a big hit, nor can it be said to be a failure. After all, as a Danish actor, how many resources can he get? There is no room for selection. Lyman also notes that this person's family conditions are pretty good. He is very family oriented and often travels between Hollywood and Denmark. Moreover, he is 40 years old this year, and his performance is very mature. He has much more life experience than young people, and he is more temperamental. Playing a lawyer is not a very difficult challenge for him. In fact, Mads' acting range is very wide, such as handsome idols, problem boys, cold villains, and even comedy roles. He can be good or evil, and he can grasp them all. Then, the day after the audition, the crew of The Lake Monster officially confirmed Mads Mikkelsen as the first male supporting actor of the project. But as an outsider, his salary is not even comparable to that of Morgan Freeman, a male supporting actor with fewer roles, and even Dakota Fanning, a little girl actor. It's not that Firefly Pictures was too hard on the price. In fact, although Mads has a good international status and is a hot actor in Denmark, his price in Hollywood is low because he has no achievements to support it. He can't raise it, even if he wants to. In the end, it was settled at $870,000. On the other hand, Mr. and Mrs. Smith has completed all the preparatory work, and director Tony has taken the crew to the location for filming. On April 29th, Thursday, early in the morning, Lyman rushed to Firefly Pictures and held a full-day meeting with Joseph and other management. During this period, the salaries of all the film's main creators were basically negotiated. Michael Caine was also straightforward and decided to play the confused father of the male protagonist. However, the negotiation of the salary package with Matthew McConaughey for the leading role was a bit bumpy. Perhaps he was too confident or his agent didn't understand the situation. The first offer was actually $7 million, and he also wanted 8% of the North American profit share after the movie was released. This guy didn't have such a high price even in Sahara. It was really a lion's mouth. Of course, this may be a negotiation technique, and he didn't really want so much. But the reason why Lyman chose Matthew at the beginning was not only because the role was suitable, but also because he had just messed up a big movie, so he took the opportunity to lower the price and reduce the film's salary expenditure. Therefore, Joseph directly refused, saying that he had never heard of any actor who could mess up a movie with an investment of over 100 million yuan and his salary increased instead of decreasing. He also said that there was more than one candidate for the role, and other agencies had alternatives. If they couldn't reach an agreement, forget it. His words were very strong. This actually scared Matthew McConaughey a lot. He was afraid that the opportunity would be gone, so he quickly took the initiative to give in. As for profit sharing, it was never mentioned again. However, Lyman also knew that this profit-sharing model was popular and was indeed the most favorable feedback given by the agency to the actor superstar. Otherwise, Matthew had just messed up a movie, so he had the confidence to make such conditions. But never mind what will happen in the future. For the performance of this movie, Matthew McConaughey can only get $4.5 million, and they agreed. And today's meeting is more about discussing the advertisers of the project and its follow-up. Yes, product placement is another technique to reduce the risk of film production. In the past, when Lyman was not famous, he could not get sponsorship. But now, even if he did not get sponsorship, people would come to him and give him money. The best in this regard are Tomb Raider and various Fashion City or Love movies, which often recover most of the investment before the release of the movie. Of course, movies are not used for advertising. How to place product placement without being resisted by the audience is also a science. At least, as a special effects monster movie, The Lake Monster does not have many places for product placement. Only the protagonist's home and the street can be appropriately shot to give some sponsors. Joseph and others discussed this. After the meeting, they had already made a list. What mobile phone brands? Apple, trucks, Ford, soap and other toiletries, cameras, Sony, and fast food such as KFC have product placement. It sounds exaggerated and feels like a lot, but in fact it is not much, and it is still carefully selected. At least, Lyman has much more integrity than Michael Bay. He didn't use a special effects blockbuster of more than 2 hours to insert advertisements into the camera. In this regard, Transformers is really awesome. It invested more than 200 million and saved 70 or 80 million. In this regard, The Lake Monster did not deliberately do it and would not change the plot for advertisements. Moreover, companies like Sony and Apple are more about providing products plus a small amount of money. It is considered good if all the product placements can add up to 7 or 8 million sponsorship fees. Of course, no matter how small the mosquito is, it is still meat. Why not save a little? A group of people discussed this in detail all day long. It has to be said that Hollywood's industrial chain is too perfect to treat movies as a business. The risks of those blockbusters have been artificially reduced a lot. The profit margin is also very large. A few days later, the crew of the film was fully assembled. In addition to the main creators, after more than half a month of busyness, a series of behind-the-scenes staff had already been arranged. So, on the first weekend of May, Lyman's work schedule suddenly became tense. There are so many things that need to be determined in these few days. For example, the actors' makeup and appearance, coordinate the schedules of supporting actors and actors' script reading sessions, rent shooting props, customize costumes. If you calculate the shooting plan, the shooting task should be completed in mid-July and turn to post-production. If you compare the schedules, there is still plenty of time before the Christmas season. Just 2 days later, Lyman and Thomas arranged to set up the set. Under such a busy schedule, the work progress was pushed forward very quickly. After that, several main creators also finished training one after another and had a deeper understanding of their respective roles. So, on May 7th, everyone rushed to the Warner studio early in the morning. Under the control of a big director like Lyman, no one is willing to play big cards. After all, no one is bigger than Lyman. Even Lyman can get up early on the day of shooting, so what can others do after being reminded? What Lyman is most satisfied with is Matthew McConaughey, who really goes out to sunbathe, and not just for sunbathing, but also for body shaping. According to him, his sweat is not in vain. This kind of dedication makes Lyman feel much better about him. Chapter 537 Mid-scene, subscriptions, votes required. The filming of The Lake Monster did not have a press conference to promote it, but started quietly. After all, sometimes the media attention is too high, and being disturbed by people secretly photographing is not a very beneficial thing. What's more, the crew has outdoor scenes, so there is no need to actively seduce the paparazzi. As for the filming of The Lake Monster, if you remove the special effects, it is still very simple. From the plot point of view, it is a very standard Hollywood monster type movie. The original director Bong Joon-ho said in an interview that his script conception is a Hollywood-style commercial product. That is what many people often call the three-stage design method. From the beginning of the peaceful years, to the initial crisis outbreak, affecting life and threatening life, and then to the end the protagonist overcomes difficulties and completes redemption. Putting this three-stage rhythm control into any mature Hollywood commercial film, you can actually find similar shadows, or in other words, similar industrialized processes have become standards. Of course, this does not mean that being mature will definitely lead to success. It just means that this kind of maturity can reduce the risk of filming. However, whether a film is a hit or not is related to the audience's support, the editing of the film and the publicity, which is another matter. However, the host undoubtedly learned the essence of Hollywood in the handling of rhythm, and it is very skilled in controlling it. The film is very smooth and there is almost no verbosity. In other words, it is cool and cool. This is also the main reason why Lyman chose to shoot this film in a different shell, and it can also solve the problem of further development of the special effects market share in the digital field. Of course, the price of maturity is that the plot of this film is very simple, and the development of the process can almost be guessed. There is nothing complicated, and there is no trick. In short, it is simple and commercial. This also shows that there is no problem of taste differences between Eastern and Western audiences in this film. It is also the secret weapon for Hollywood movies to be popular around the world, minimizing geoculture. No matter which country the audience goes to, they can accept the story inside, because this story has no values and is not discussed. Without discussion, there will naturally be no barriers. This is just like everyone discussing the worldview of Marvel movies. In fact, even if you don't understand it, it doesn't affect the viewing experience. It's cool and enjoyable. Moreover, Firefly Pictures is short of cash now. This movie with low investment and potential for big hit is the most comprehensive and suitable choice. It is not difficult to get a high box office. May 4th was the first day of filming. In a well-arranged studio, the first thing to be filmed was the male protagonist's family scenes in the good years section. That is, the indoor scenes. The identities of several characters are also very common in the image of middle-income American family. The male protagonist is a delivery man in his 30s who has experienced several relationships, but has not yet married, and he is busy outside every day. His father is a retired, alcoholic, and confused old man who is developing towards Alzheimer's disease. His mother is divorced, and then there is a rebellious sister who is eager to become a big star. She is clamoring not to study and wants to go to Hollywood and is suppressed by her brother. Finally, the second brother, played by Paul Bettany, is idle all day long and starts to rely on his parents when he just enters the society. The images of several characters are very vivid, and these scenes are also warm and a little noisy. They are very daily parts. No matter which aspect is taken, there is no problem, and it is simple. When it comes to shooting, the speed is very fast and smooth. In the house, the family is watching a football game. The two brothers started to quarrel habitually again. One asked to find a job, and the other hesitated and refused. As they talked, the topic deviated to the issue of support for the two teams, and the younger sister fanned the flames on the side, and the quarrel quickly expanded. The father was still immersed in the temptation of alcohol. After arguing for a while, just when they were about to have a real-life park fight, The father suddenly suggested going on a picnic. It happened that the eldest brother would have a break from work the next 2 days, so they could go out and play together. The father sighed and said, "I remember the last time we had a picnic was 7 years ago, when your mother was still alive." After hearing this, the younger sister rolled her eyes at her father, who was a little drunk, and started to talk nonsense. Cut. After this shot was shot, Lyman called a pause. He neither said okay nor no, do it again. Instead, he sat behind the director's monitor and frowned slightly, thinking. The performances of the actors were actually flawless. The tone and body language when reading the lines were very natural, but after seeing the image, it just felt wrong. It wasn't a problem with the lighting. He took the storyboard and looked through it carefully. It was indeed completed according to his requirements, Lyman thought. After continuously calling up the camera screen and checking it back and forth several times, Lyman was thoughtful. It was the camera position. The space given for the shots was too dense, so it was easy to highlight a single actor, that is, to make the most of the stage. The most commonly used method was close-up shots of characters, but in the shots of such a family, it seemed out of place, with a sense of exclusion, too deliberate. After realizing this, Lyman immediately said, "Thomas, camera number 1, move back a little, for a medium shot." Thomas made an okay gesture, stepped back, and then rearranged the camera positions. It was no longer a single character image, but a group of people in the shot. Lyman stared at the frame of the shot fed back by the monitor, and nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, everyone, get ready, let's shoot that scene again." 5 minutes later, the actors repositioned themselves, the script supervisor came forward to record the scene, and the shooting began again. Lyman stared at the performances of several people on the monitor carefully, secretly comparing this shot with the shot just completed, and it was indeed much more coordinated. Of course, this section is mainly to explain the image of several characters and express family relationships, and also to pave the way for the subsequent plot. On the day of the picnic, the male protagonist saw a strange black shadow in Lake Michigan again, and then remembered what happened a few days ago. He knew that it was not an eye disease on the way to deliver the goods that day, but that there were indeed some creatures in Lake Michigan that he had never seen before. Although it is just a prelude, Lyman did not want to treat it carelessly. If he found something that was not good enough, he would ask for it to be done again. It's not that he is demanding, but this kind of careless attitude is always perfunctory in filming a movie. How can you please the audience and hope for their support? Many times, how the director treats the audience is how the audience will treat the director's work. Don't treat anyone as a fool. Everyone has eyes to see. How can you want to fool and sell well at the box office at the same time? Chapter 538 Revenge of the Sith. Subscribe, vote. While Lyman was still busy filming The Lake Monster, the heat of the American summer movie season had already begun. In terms of publicity, each movie was more generous than the other. The first one was the third movie in the Star Wars series, Revenge of the Sith, which was the last of the Star Wars prequels. Director, George Lucas. Production company, Lucasfilm, and distribution company, 20th Century Fox. At the beginning of May, it triggered a frenzy of discussion among the whole nation, even if it was just publicity, and the movie was not released. Perhaps, many Orientals find it hard to imagine why the Star Wars series is so popular in the West. If many viewers who don't understand go to see this movie, they will definitely not know why a group of people fighting with glow sticks is so exciting. Or they will wonder why guns can't beat sticks, it's ridiculous and so on. I randomly intercepted some movie reviews that think Star Wars is eye-catching. But this is Star Wars, the movie series with the most cultural barriers. If you make an analogy, its significance is China's journey to the West. After all, Coppola, who directed the Godfather series, said, "This movie has been religiousized." Do you think he is exaggerating? Haha, not at all. Perhaps, many Star Wars fans know the classic line, "May the Force be with you." The concept of the movie setting of the Force is the belief of many people. As of 2001, more than 120,000 people in New Zealand and Australia filled in the Force as a belief in their resumes. The young generation in these two regions at that time added up to more than 4 million people, and in the UK, the number of believers in the Force was as high as 390,000. The success of the Star Wars series of movies is caused by a series of factors such as the times, culture, and human fantasy of outer space, not just excellent production. In fact, Lucas himself did not expect it to be so popular. He is just a movie businessman. His original intention was just to make a martial arts movie in the guise of science fiction. After all, he himself is a fan of Kurosawa Akira. The first Star Wars directly borrowed a lot of Eastern culture, such as the master-apprentice system, cold weapon fighting, realm setting, falling into the devil, bullying the master, and destroying the ancestors. At first glance, these are all routines that Eastern creators such as Jin Yang and Gulong have played out. This is also the reason why Eastern audiences are indifferent to these. They think it is too ethical and too weird. The I'm your father in the second part is even more embarrassing. But once a movie becomes a sentiment and caters to the times, how can it not be successful? The first Star Wars was released in 1977. The fans in the past are now the father's generation. If the father likes it, it is easy to influence the children. If you go to the theater and observe it, you will know that those who buy tickets to support it are often a family. What is it called? This is childhood. Star Wars fully explains what it means to create heroes in times of crisis. For a while, movies like Monster Mother and Madagascar were completely unable to compete with Revenge of the Sith in terms of popularity. In terms of newspaper pages, it cost a lot to get the second page. But we can't avoid the summer season. Actively avoiding it also means actively giving up. Even if we know we can't win, we have to go. After all, the market cake can't be eaten up by one movie. So, several companies are desperately throwing money to build momentum. If you throw 10 million, I will throw 20 million, which makes the media smile. As for Paramount, it once again watched several companies interact in the summer season, and then threw in a few low-cost independent movies as cannon fodder, hoping to get some dregs. In the middle of the summer season, more than a month after Star Wars was released, the competition was also fierce. The Project War of the Worlds brought by Spielberg, after he initially joined Paramount. Paramount could not get the majority of the profits. Spielberg is quite calculating. He has the ability to do so. The leading actor is Tom Cruise. On May 19th, Revenge of the Sith began to premiere. A group of fans who got the news have been waiting at the door of the theater since last night, and the ticket grabbing matter has to be planned a week in advance. After all, 20th Century Fox did not release many premiere tickets to the audience, but critics and guests gave more. The plot of this film is roughly about Anakin's fall from light to darkness, and the portrayal of Anakin, the villain, is tragic. In the future publicity, 20th Century Fox also repeatedly promoted this, and later, Anakin became the third most impressive villain in film history, second only to Hannibal in The Silence of the Lambs and Norman Bates in Psycho. Industrial Light and Magic's special effects production in this film exceeded 2,200 shots, surpassing any previous Star Wars movie and fantasy blockbuster, and even the Lord of the Rings trilogy did not have such a large amount of money. With such investment, plus its own audience and strong publicity, it is almost certain that the box office will be obtained. When it was released, no one in the industry would think that Star Wars would not be a hit. Facts have proved that this is indeed the case. This film was screened in 115 countries and regions in the world. In North America alone, it directly broke various box office records without suspense, and also set off a Star Wars storm around the world, constantly setting new highs. On the first day of its premiere, it earned $16.5 million, breaking the record for midnight shows. The original record holder was The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King with $8 million, more than twice as much. On the day of its premiere, it earned $50.01 million, breaking the box office record for the first day of its premiere. The original record holder was Spider-Man 2 with $40.4 million, an increase of nearly $10 million, and also broke the daily box office record. Shrek the Monsters once earned $44.8 million in its first weekend. There are also Thursday box office records. The Matrix Reloaded with $37.5 million, first weekend records. In short, it just kept going up. While the box office was selling well, the audience also had a good reputation. Basically, the mainstream evaluations were positive, and they said that unlike the political preaching of Attack of the Clones, this one obviously had a space opera-like charm, and was highly praised. This movie only cost about $115 million to make. Even if we ignore the large amount of publicity and promotion, according to industry insiders, according to the analysis of the box office trend, they all agree that Lucas will earn more than $100 million US. This is just the box office share. As we all know, the peripheral products of Star Wars are very popular, and it is normal to make several times more than the box office profit. In fact, George Lucas can become one of the most successful capitalists in Hollywood just by relying on this series. After all, it is really profitable and everyone is jealous. As for the fact that this movie won the annual box office championship in 2005, basically no one questioned it because the box office trend was really stable. The decline in the second week was less than 18%. In less than a week of screening, it has accumulated more than $130 million in North America. It's really exaggerated. Chapter 539. Exaggeration. Please subscribe and vote. May 27th, Tuesday. This is the fourth week of filming for The Lake Monster, and the crew has come to Michigan for location shooting. The current North American film market is still a mess, and the big films of several studios are trying to get box office revenue. However, this has no impact on Firefly Pictures. Instead, Blue Butterfly Pictures released 2 independent films and barely made a profit. The time came to 1:30 in the afternoon. The scene to be filmed is the scene where the water monster comes ashore and kills everyone. It is also one of the few large-scale scenes in the whole film, which is the most expensive part. In order to reduce mistakes and cause the budget to get out of control, the crew arranged 2 full days to shoot this part of the shot, which is very cautious. In the specially built motion capture studio, the area of less than 15 square meters that was temporarily converted is very crowded at this time. Like various digital equipment and motion capture equipment, as well as special conductive display cameras, reflectors, isolation curtains, plus 4 staff members of the special effects team in the digital field and the only performer Andy Serkis. The small area was filled to the brim, and the remaining irrelevant personnel could only stay outside, but there was no other way. The conditions were like this. After all, the special effects of the lake monster did not account for a large proportion, and it was not comparable to those magical masterpieces. Naturally, the budget could only reach this level. At this moment, Andy Serkis had already put on the equipment, and his face was full of dense green dots. This was an auxiliary technology for capturing expressions with a calculator. He half squatted on the ground, with an exaggerated and distorted expression. If you only watch the physical performance, you will feel that the facial muscles are so large that you can't believe that it was performed like this, but the motion capture actor does have to adapt to this exaggeration. Generally speaking, actors don't actually need to express emotions like this, because in the camera lens, the actor's every move will be faithfully recorded. Too exaggerated, it's not beautiful. But if it's motion capture, it's not exaggerated, and the equipment is not easy to capture expressions. This is like a drama performance and a film and television performance. There are many differences between the two. On the other side, Matthew McConaughey was wearing a baseball cap and smoking. The second brother played by Paul Bettany was chatting with the father played by Michael Caine. It was also the time when the family was having a picnic in Lake Michigan and a monster attack was about to happen. Dozens of extras and passers-by had been invited to act as background boards around the venue. The Lake Monster, Scene 57, second shot, action, run, run. There's a monster. All kinds of panicked voices, just because everyone saw the water monster. The second brother was anxious and ran as fast as he could at the first time. Matthew McConaughey was also scared. The monster was very aggressive. After landing on the shore, it had killed several people and eaten them. But he was still thinking about the safety of his little sister. In a panic, he saw a person wearing a beige dress. Judging from the figure, it seemed to be his sister. He quickly grabbed her and ran away. Halfway through the run, he heard the voice and realized that something was wrong. He had grabbed the wrong person, a stranger, and quickly let go and went back. The little sister played by Fanning had already walked away. After seeing the water monster, she was a little scared and dumbfounded. Her feet were out of control, and she was about to cry. Thomas controlled the camera lens to pan to the left, then zoomed in to give Fanning a close-up of her face. Her panic and fear were clearly revealed on her face. "Little sister," Matthew shouted while running. Fanning heard the voice and looked back, but felt that the sun above her head was blocked. Click. Lemon praised. "This segment is past. Everyone is very good." Dakota Fanning was very happy to get the director's affirmation. As a child star, she usually has a lot of advertising endorsements or attends promotional activities. Acting in movies is her favorite job, both a sense of accomplishment and not feeling bored. Afterwards, the crew asked Andy Serkis to perform it alone again. At this time, the technology was not enough to achieve synchronous docking. In addition to acting with the actors, he often had to go to the studio alone to face the transmission equipment again. After more than half an hour, the actors who had reapplied some makeup were in their positions again. A female double had already changed into Dakota Fanning's costume and was ready to hang on the wire and pretend to be swallowed by the monster. However, the main character quietly walked to Lemon and said, "Mr. Director, I can do this myself. I can act well." Lemon admired the little girl's strong attitude, but still did not agree. "The next action is a bit dangerous. It is difficult to do it without special training. Also, what if something unexpected happens and you fall from it and get hurt?" Having said that, Dakota Fanning had to stand aside and watch obediently. After all, wires are not so easy to hang, let alone make appropriate movements with special effects. Even if it is a professional double, the first time she was pulled backwards, she didn't fall well enough, and her posture was a bit stiff. She flew in the air for more than half an hour before she made a more satisfactory posture of being bitten by the monster and running back to the lake. And even in such a short operation without showing the face, the professional double came down from the wire and couldn't help but hold his lower back, grinning and hissing, obviously injured. Of course, this is her job. If it is not dangerous, she would not be needed. She would go to the side to apply ointment after getting paid. Dakota Fanning, who had previously wanted to do it herself, didn't say anything about not using a double at this time. Hanging in the air and being pulled by others to make various movements is obviously a technical and physical job. The next scene needs to be shot in a jump shot, and all the parts of the same location are shot together. After the little sister was captured by the monster, she did not die, but was trapped in a sewer pipe. After calling for help, the isolated male protagonist and his father and his group decided to rescue her. They picked up the shotgun and took the initiative to look for the traces of the monster. For several days, nothing was found. On the contrary, one rainy day, when they were hiding from the rain at home, the monster took the initiative to show up. The father picked up the shotgun and shot at it, but the bullets hit the monster, but it had no effect at all. Obviously, the monster has good defense and is not afraid of firearms at all. Then, after a thrilling hunt, they finally found some clues to the monster's lair, but at this moment, because the second brother gave an unloaded shotgun to the old man, he was killed in the confrontation and was trampled to death by the monster. It was also at this time that the hero's courage was strengthened under the sadness and pain. In other words, this guy has the awareness of dying. If he is not afraid of death, why should he be afraid of water monsters? Of course, the shots of this character portrayal were actually very difficult to shoot, because it needs to cooperate with the work in the digital field. They are basically shot very slowly one by one. Fortunately, it was completed in the end. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540, Leaving the Group. Please subscribe and vote. The alarm clock on the bedside kept ringing. Lemon turned over and turned off the alarm. He blinked his eyes, then put on his clothes and went to wash up. The place they rented was a few hostels. In fact, the conditions were not very good, and the decoration was not exquisite. Many employees did not even have a single room, so they just had to squeeze in and make do. After all, when you are away from home, there is no choice. At least this place is very close to the filming location, so you don't have to run back and forth and waste time on the road. After breakfast, go to the set. Matthew McConaughey, Michael Caine, Dakota Fanning and others have also arrived and are putting on makeup and changing clothes. Then in the morning, shoot the previous scene again. That is, after the monster attack that day, the government banned the relevant news from leaking in order to prevent the public from panicking, and also isolated and blocked all the survivors of that day. But before that, the lawyer found by the protagonist felt something was wrong. Driven by curiosity, he took the initiative to visit the male protagonist, but found that the whole family was gone. Just as I was wondering, I ran into a group of soldiers again and saw an old man who wanted to go fishing in the wild was stopped and not allowed to go to Lake Michigan. This old man is naturally the guest role of Morgan Freeman. That is, he did not listen to the soldiers, and in the evening, he secretly took his granddaughter fishing and was eaten by the monster, which led to the subsequent plot. That is, the lawyer played by Mads Mikkelsen discovered all this and helped the protagonists escape from the isolation. Hi, Mr. Freeman. Morgan Freeman didn't have many scenes, and he only came here from Los Angeles when he was about to appear. As soon as he appeared on the set, Lemon greeted him warmly. Compared with other actors, Lemon must be more familiar with this one. After all, they have worked together several times, and perhaps there is also Dakota Fanning. But the question is, what can a little girl talk about? It's not like I have any developed hobbies, and I'm happy to find topics to talk about with a minor. Haha, Director Lemon, I'm not late, am I? Morgan Freeman asked with a smile as he stepped forward and shook hands with Lemon. Of course not. I asked you to make a special trip this time, and it's only a short shot. It's actually you who should be bothered. If you have this kind of trouble in the future, please continue to find me. Morgan Freeman said something nice, which made Lemon feel very comfortable. By the way, this guy has a Hayek, which makes it sad that so many big directors like to ask him to play a cameo role, even if the role is not big. And they get along very well, so that people can think of him first when they have a suitable role, which is not easy. Haha, there is about half an hour left to set up the scene and shoot. Morgan Freeman nodded and ran to greet Thomas and other crew members. When the scene was set up, Lemon ordered, Morgan, when you appear on the screen later, you can play freely. You don't need any lines, just highlight the aggressiveness of the monster. Then, a little girl of 6 or 7 also stood in position under the care of a pair of parents. Lemon had no impression of the little girl and estimated that her future was not clear. However, there was no shortage of child actors in Hollywood these days, but few of them made it. After losing the advantage of age, many child stars either grew up ugly or had no resources and soon retired. The Lake Monster, Scene 63, First Shot, Action. Under the light orange light created by the lighting team, a pair of hooks were hung on the still clear water. Morgan Freeman sat on a small stool and watched his granddaughter playing. Suddenly, there were some fluctuations in the water, but the amplitude was not large. It seemed that a fish was observing the bait, but it had not yet taken the bait. So cunning. Morgan Freeman frowned secretly, but he was very energetic. A black shadow slowly approached the shore from not far away. The little girl looked at it in surprise and wanted to remind her grandfather, but she hadn't spoken yet. The water was surging, and a very strange black creature, about 2 meters long, with gills and hind legs, rushed to the shore. Morgan Freeman is already an old actor who has been filming for decades. He has played countless supporting roles and has extremely rich acting experience. Even if he plays casually, there is no possibility of any mistakes in this simple scene. This kind of scene is very comfortable to shoot, and there is no need to worry about the actors having problems. In the following scenes, Michael Caine's personal scenes are also very smooth, and they are all passed in one take. This kind of shooting speed is very fast. Even if the time spent on setting up the scene and transitioning is included, the shots that can be shot the day before can be shot in one morning. According to the normal progress, 3 scenes were originally scheduled for today, but they were almost all completed in one morning. Of course, this may also be because the crew has been filming for such a long time, and it is much easier to cooperate. Lemon looked at the schedule and said, there is still plenty of time now, so hurry over and shoot the scene of the protagonist group escaping from the isolation room. When Thomas heard this, he quickly began to call everyone to dismantle the equipment and transition again. Then he called a few extras to come over. These scenes were all consecutive, and the scene layout was much simpler. I had thought about how to arrange it when I rented it at the beginning. After working for most of the afternoon, the day's shooting was about to end. A group of people sealed the inventory, and when they returned to the hotel, they were all exhausted. But they still had to get up early the next day. In fact, when shooting a movie, it is very slow. When it is slow, it is common for the crew to stop working directly because of a little dissatisfaction. Or when shooting a big scene, they wish they could split one person into two people, but there are still not enough people. In this way, another week passed. As the filming of the movie gradually decreased, each crew member became very motivated. After all, they could take a holiday and rest after filming, and get the last salary, wait for the screening, and get a bonus if the box office is a big hit. But at this time, Lyman had to leave the crew and suspend filming. As for the reason, it was because Warner's masterpiece Batman Begins was going to hold a premiere, and Barry Meir personally called to invite him, so he couldn't help but give face. Of course, Lyman himself was also going to attend. Was he going to support Christopher Nolan? After all, the film was financed mostly by Firefly Pictures, and although he certainly wouldn't get the lion's share of the profits, or even a shred of the copyright, being able to befriend director Nolan meant that he would have a role in several of his future blockbuster films, which wasn't bad. You know, Warner agreed to cooperate because Firefly's conditions were too good. Otherwise they would have invited other investment institutions to contribute, and they wouldn't have given up the copyright anyway. Chapter 541 The Mystery of the Hero's Shadow. Please subscribe and vote. Before a Hollywood movie is released, if the movie is very good, it will generally spend some money to hold a premiere, and then invite film critics, media reporters and a small number of fans to preview it. Warner naturally attaches great importance to the image of DC's trump card character Batman, and the premiere was also very grand. The venue was chosen to be the China Grand Theater, and the staff began to decorate and arrange it a few days in advance, and the interior can accommodate more than 1,000 seats. At this time, a long red carpet has been laid at the entrance of the theater, and some anxious fans are busy occupying a suitable viewing position. Speaking of it, the restart of the Batman project is very much anticipated by a large part of the comic audience and the fans accumulated by the previous Batman movies. Coupled with Warner's recent large-scale promotion and publicity, the relevant news quickly spread throughout the United States, causing heated discussions. It can be said that Warner wants to see the success of Batman Begins more than anyone else. After all, the subsequent linkage brought by such a work can sink to all aspects, such as increasing comic sales, character licensing and future DC hero development, etc. And the profit space is immeasurable. 20th Century Fox was a little worried when they saw Warner working so hard. Nowadays, the most powerful company in developing superheroes is not Marvel or Warner, but Fox. The next is Sony Columbia, which made a lot of money with Spider-Man. How can they not worry about someone coming in to snatch the audience and fans? But there is no way. Warner holds DC and will develop characters anyway. They are just silent for a while. 15 years ago, the popularity of the Superman series was also very high, but the production was rough and the audience was tired of it. Eva Green put on her dress and stood in front of the mirror. The diet clothing staff next to her continued to help her dress up. In this regard, men are obviously much simpler. Anyway, Lemon took less than 20 minutes to get ready and spent the rest of the time watching Eva. She put on a little light makeup and applied bright red lipstick. Her moist face, deep chestnut pupils, slightly thick lips, and lifted nose bridge, heroic and charming, with upward corners of the eyes and eyeliner, had a strange beauty that made people feel dangerous. Well, more like a female fairy. Does it look good? Eva asked coquettishly when she found that the man's eyes were fixed on her. I can't see enough. Lemon smiled, took a diamond and platinum necklace from the staff, and helped her put it on. As the image spokesperson of Dyer, Eva now basically has to fulfill the obligation of brand promotion in any event she attends. After all, the money is not so easy to get. It is troublesome and meticulous to maintain one's personal image. After a long time, Dyer's makeup artist, costume designer and even styling director left one after another. Lemon looked at Eva and said with a smile, "Come, let me kiss you." "No, it will ruin my makeup." Although she said so, Eva did not resist and let Lemon pull her into his arms. The sexy red lips did not escape the punishment of the big bad wolf. After parting their lips, Lemon looked at his watch. "Well, we should go." There was still more than an hour before the premiere, but the area around the theater was already very lively. Looking around, the dense crowd was crowded like a paste. The red carpet was full of reporters, flashlights were flashing non-stop, and most of Warner's senior executives, including Barry Meir, showed up, showing their special importance to this premiere. Afterwards, the bosses of all the studios that had worked with Warner came to show their support, and then the star actors from CAA, Utah and other agencies came out one after another to walk the red carpet, which was a star-studded event. In the middle of the show, director Nolan appeared with the crew of The Dark Knight. In the theater, Barry Meir was polite to a group of film and television practitioners, and suddenly turned to his assistant and said, "Has Lemon arrived?" "No, I guess he was delayed by something." The two thought so, but they didn't know that the person they were discussing had actually arrived, but he hadn't gotten out of the car to walk the red carpet yet, and wanted to wait until a little later. It was not until he saw director Nolan and the crew finished walking that Lemon pulled Eva out of the car and walked into the theater quickly while cooperating with reporters to take pictures. After exchanging polite words with the people from Warner, Lemon discovered that competitors such as Fox and Universal Pictures had also sent executives to participate. "I just don't know what their purpose is." Then, he went to talk to Nolan. In this occasion today, director Nolan is the most popular person, surrounded by a lot of film practitioners and actors. After all, being able to direct works like Batman, no matter how you look at it, is a rising star director, and many people want to make friends with him in advance. But when Lemon came over, he was very respectful. In the original Time and Space, it was Warner who appreciated him, and Legendary Pictures was on good terms with him, and willing to invest. In this life, it was Lemon who recommended Nolan to take over the Batman project, and the money was also paid by Firefly Pictures. Nolan didn't say this, but he was very grateful in his heart. After all, before this, he was just a small director with a relatively successful box office. To get such an opportunity, anyone would think it was a promotion. Moreover, he himself is not a mean and ungrateful character. After his success in his previous life, he cooperated the most with Legendary Pictures and Warner. It can be said that the future success of Legendary Pictures is also related to Nolan. Of course, today's Legendary Pictures has gone to rely on Universal, co-produced several works, and made some money, but it is hard to say whether it can achieve the same success as in the previous life. In addition, in the first film after the Batman reboot, Nolan did not actually inject too much personal style. After all, he was cautious and feared that the film would fail. It was not until the film was profitable, and after the experiment of The Prestige, that he started to conceive the second part, which was the pinnacle of Batman, The Dark Knight. If you have seen the trilogy, you should be able to see this change. In the first part, it did not deviate too much from the comics, and there were not many private goods. It mainly focused on Bruce Wayne's ideological conflicts, trampling on rules and protecting rules. But in the second part, except for the title and Wayne, there are too many private goods. It is more appropriate to say that it is the Batman story repackaged by Nolan. The character settings have changed a lot, and the worldview is directly centered around Nolan's personal thinking. But it is also because of this part of the talented thinking packaging that the trilogy has become a trilogy. Perhaps Nolan's approach was not good for the entire DC universe, and it affected Warner's joint plan. But if you think about it from another perspective, it was precisely because of this that the new Bruce Wayne was created and reached an unprecedented height. Chapter 542 Bruce Wayne. Subscribe, vote. The scene begins in a large courtyard where two children, a boy and a girl, are playing. During the play, the little boy accidentally falls into a big hole, which disturbs the bats inside. They fly around in a rush, leaving a mark in the boy's frightened eyes, which has become an unforgettable nightmare for the young master. Later, his father rescued Bruce and gently comforted him. Do you know why they attack you? Because of fear. All creatures are afraid, even those scary bats. In the narration of the camera, Bruce took the urban rail train built by his family and went to the opera with his parents. Here, an actor who played a bat caused Bruce to have bad memories. The father saw his son's nervousness, so the family left early. But as soon as he went out, he met a homeless man with a gun. The father thought that, if he handed over the money, he would leave, but the homeless man took a fancy to the pearl necklace. During the robbery, the homeless man fired 2 shots without hesitation, and after getting all the property, he left without looking back. That night, young Bruce stood crying on the street, his lonely shadow stretched out very long. No one knows what he was thinking at this moment, but he has always felt guilty about it, thinking that if he had not left early because of fear, he would not have met the homeless man. It was thought that this gunman would stay in prison for life, but because he learned some secrets of the gangster boss Falcone in prison and was willing to testify in court, he was given a reduced sentence and a chance for early parole. Bruce, who was studying abroad, learned about this and rushed back. So many years have passed, but he still can't let go of that thing. Until this time, Batman Begins can be the first work to set the tone for the trilogy. It really raised a question through Nolan's audiovisual language and used a nearly allegorical mode to tell the audience why Bruce Wayne is the role model ceiling of superheroes. He is not the most capable, but he must be the most charming. That is the no-killing principle that Wayne insists on. It sounds ridiculous that a crime fighter insists on principles against criminals, but Nolan wants to use this most controversial and Wayne's most adhered creed to be nakedly presented to all the audience. It is slowly expressed with the most straightforward, explicit and in-depth shots. At the beginning, Wayne's parents are already millionaires, the richest family in Gotham, and often give money back to society. Then, they are killed by an ordinary homeless man. Then, when Wayne grew up, he learned that his enemy might have his sentence reduced, so he went to the hearing with a gun. As a result, before he could do anything, he was shot and killed by the gangsters who came to retaliate. Rachel, his childhood playmate, drove Bruce away and told him that she was investigating Falcone. This time, he also killed the homeless man. Bruce felt that there was nothing wrong with this, and it was also justice for his parents. But Rachel said that Falcone was simply a thug who ignored the law, and his behavior was wrong. Bruce Wayne said indifferently, "There's something wrong with your system." Rachel heard it and drove Bruce to a remote factory. This is Falcone's territory, where the prosperity of the city cannot shine, and darkness takes root here. Rachel said that Falcone's behavior is actually destroying everything your parents have built. He just didn't kill them personally. The car stopped at the door of a bar, and Rachel told Bruce that Falcone was inside. If you want to thank him, you can go to him in person. Bruce closed his eyes, a little tired. He said that he was not a partner of justice. He had wanted to kill the homeless man for so many years. He had always thought about this idea. But now, there is no chance. There was a sense of relief in his tone, and he took out the prepared pistol from his pocket. Rachel looked at Bruce in disbelief, extremely disappointed, and had a sense of regret. In this mood, Rachel slapped Bruce hard, and then the second time, "You really embarrassed your parents." Bruce didn't say anything. He saw something in Rachel's eyes. He actually didn't want to become the kind of person who killed his parents, but he was confused and felt that the homeless were the criminals, so wasn't it natural for him to be punished, even if he was killed by another group of thugs? But Nolan spoke the core of this contradiction through Rachel's mouth. It's not that justice cannot be served, but justice must be served with procedures and institutional constraints. If everyone takes revenge at will, what will the world become? Bruce angrily threw the pistol into the sea, and then rushed into the bar to protest to Falcone. This section is actually the first turning point in the whole film for Bruce to become Batman. The gangsters were having fun in the bar, and there were groups of suffering people at the bottom of society on the street outside. Then Bruce walked in and said, "I came here because not everyone is afraid of you." Falcone was amused by the reckless boy in front of him, but he was not polite to him. Falcone said, "Don't think that you can understand this world just because you witnessed your parents being killed. You are the Prince of Gotham wherever you go. Do you still need to find some ridiculous sense of existence here? It doesn't matter whether you are afraid of me or not. There are still many things to learn in this world for young people like you. What can you understand? Falcone took out a gun, pointed it at Bruce, and taunted him. You don't even have a gun. You are too cowardly. You don't want to wail on the ground like your father. This was so harsh that it successfully angered Bruce, but Falcone didn't dare to kill him. He just asked his men to throw him out of the bar. Bruce only regretted his ridiculous gratitude now, because he found that Rachel was right. There was actually not much difference between a person who advocated violence and himself who advocated killing for life. He felt that he was also ridiculous. This night, with confusion about various problems and fear of the unknown, Bruce decided to live in a different identity and began to try to be a respected person like his father and find a way to save this city that seemed to have been defeated. He took out his savings and bought a homeless coat because he felt that Falcone was right. He was born to be the prince of this city and never bowed his head to feel the life of the lower class. He thought that his answer needed such experience to find. During this trip, Bruce lost a lot of ability to judge right and wrong. He would steal because of hunger and personally experience the fear of sin and the pleasure of trampling on the rules after committing crimes. He seemed to understand and kept wondering until he met the second person who gave him inspiration, Dukada, in prison. Dukada told Bruce that there was an organization called the Shadow Warrior Alliance, and their belief was that evildoers cannot be condoned, and revenge is the solution. But Bruce was still very confused, because this was actually no different from what the gangster Falcone advocated, both using violence to solve violence. The Shadow Warrior Alliance is another microcosm, representing all the unjust and unfair persecutions used to achieve their goals. They are also trampling on the rules, no different from Falcone. Bruce was confused, and even if he didn't agree, he decided to go and see. He found the blue flowers at the foot of the snow-capped mountain, and climbed to the top of the mountain with difficulty. There is a building standing on the cliff. Bruce finally saw the legendary Rasagu, and won the recognition of the leader. After that, he followed Dukada to learn various fighting skills. Here, Dukada often stimulated Bruce with his guilt for his parents. Bruce kept emphasizing that the homeless man had a gun. Finally, when Bruce was tested and asked why he didn't dare to kill his enemy, Bruce really found the answer to the question he wanted. Whether it is the Shadow Warriors League or Falcone, they finally returned to what Rachel said, not killing criminals. Is it really sympathizing with them and protecting them? Just like the homeless robbed and killed the Wayne couple because of poverty, the Shadow Warriors League was determined to destroy Gotham for justice and rebuild Gotham, which was just reincarnation. At this time, Bruce Wayne finally stood up. He began to understand, killing a criminal is just to stop a crime. In places he can't see, darkness is still growing, but establishing an indelible spirit for this city can make justice last forever. Bats flew from the pit, and the legend of the Dark Knight began. This is a deeper struggle. Bruce Wayne may only survive for less than 100 years, but the spirit of Batman is indelible. When a criminal falls, there are thousands of crimes. When a Batman falls, there are thousands of superheroes who stand up. That night, with the shocking background music created by Hans Zimmer, it completely marked the rebirth of the Bat. Bruce's first action was to capture Falcone. He sneaked into Gordon's room and asked why Falcone was committing crimes and selling drugs, but he didn't catch him. Gordon's heart skipped a beat, but he still answered that many people were bribed. If you want to solve Falcone, you need to put pressure on the judge, hold irrefutable evidence, and have a prosecutor who is determined to prosecute. Bruce thought for a while and said, Rachel Dawes. Then he turned and left. He ran very awkwardly, and because of his lack of business skills, he almost fell to his death. So he went to Fox again, and Fox showed him a cape that was usually very soft, but once it passed through an electric current, it would change shape and glide for a short distance. Later, a series of equipment, including the Batmobile, allowed Bruce to grow up quickly. From then on, Gotham had a Batman who believed in the no-killing principle, a guardian of the night. Chapter 543 gradually mature. Please subscribe and vote. As the saying goes, laymen watch the excitement, experts watch the doorway. At this moment, Lyman was sitting in the theater and revisiting the movie again, and he was also deeply touched. Perhaps because he participated in the shooting and production of this project throughout the whole process, he could see some things more clearly. In other words, director Nolan's personal style has a gradual maturity process, and Batman Begins is one of his earlier works. As a superhero origin work, the film tells the story of Bruce Wayne overcoming his fear, solving his inner confusion, becoming Batman and fighting criminals in order to save the fallen Gotham. In summary, the plot can be said to be mediocre. Similar routines have been introduced in comics and previous Batman films. It seems that it is okay to say that it is a rehash. But just like this, Nolan used his gradually skilled film and television skills to make this conventional story amazing. The film is nearly 2.5 hours long, which is not short, but if you consider the huge amount of information revealed in the film, and the creation of the fallen atmosphere of Gotham, in order to fit the comics, you will feel that this length is nothing. In other words, during the viewing process, the audience will feel that the film is very full, and if they are not careful, they will miss many details. And from this movie, we can also see some common familiarity in Nolan's future films. For example, the scene composition with complex textures, the sense of solidity of insisting on real shots, the movement of various pictures, etc. So that even if Nolan's movies put aside the rigor of the plot, they are also extremely rich in visuals. Therefore, watching his movies rarely feels that the picture sense is not enough, because Nolan always uses the realistic texture of the lens to give the audience sufficient story information. Lyman looked back at the facial expressions of the audience around him, as if he could feel a sense of pleasure, the pleasure of seeing a good work. But in the audience, there were a few people with mixed feelings. They are the executives of Columbia's production department, the executives of Warner DC Comics department, and the executives of Universal Pictures. Speaking of which, these people actually have a great connection with superhero movies. The reason why Spider-Man was so successful was that Sam Raimi insisted on taking the civilian route for Peter Parker, emphasizing the character under the mask. He would be cowardly, fearful, and even tortured by remorse for killing his uncle because he let a thief go. So this character is flesh and blood. Universal's Hulk originally went to Lyman as the director, and it was reasonable to say that it was not so popular and add a sense of heaviness to the film. As a result, it failed because it explored the theme too much and lacked passionate scenes. But what about this Blade Begins? When it was promoted to the outside world, some people took it seriously. This time, they came because everyone was developing superhero projects and could understand the way of this movie so as to learn experience or lessons. Who would have thought that Blade Begins was a complete subversion of the concept of superhero movies? If you change the protagonist, you can say it is an action crime movie. There is no difference between a superhero and an ordinary person. Bruce Wayne is not that powerful. Apart from the assistance of various high-tech equipment, he basically has no superhuman abilities. People in Columbia deeply doubt whether this is really a superhero movie. Although Peter Parker also takes the civilian route, he still has means that ordinary people don't have. At least few of them are mutated by spider bites. People in Universal are thinking that if Nolan had been asked to shoot the Hulk at the beginning, it would have been better. It has both depth and popular highlights. Isn't it the director talent they were looking for at the beginning? Of course, the Hulk project has been unanimously agreed by Universal management to be shelved indefinitely. Even if they see it, it is too late. I can only sigh and say, what a pity. As for the DC department, they are confused about how their own Batman setting has become weaker, how to continue filming in the future. However, they did not realize the seriousness of the problem, because after the trilogy, Bruce Wayne was really trapped in a swamp. With both box office and word of mouth being a big success, the adaptation work has reached a deadlock. It can neither break through the upper limit of the trilogy nor dare to lower the lower limit unless it rearranges and creates another Batman. Look at how badly Ben Affleck was scolded in Batman v Superman. Is it really all because of the change of the protagonist? Not necessarily. Zack Snyder's version of this work is leaning towards the dark style of Nolan's trilogy, but he is actually best at the lens. After all, this guy has a strong foundation in painting. The director has a different focus. If you force yourself to learn, you will learn a strange thing. Even so, many scenes in Batman v Superman are very visual, but with the comparison, the audience is not so satisfied. In addition, in terms of editing, Warner management began to micromanage, which led to the tragedy. Instead of scolding the actors, it is better to say that Warner is too anxious to connect. For some universe plan, it forcibly merges several characters together, regardless of whether the audience likes it or not. It can only be said that the profit temptation brought by the Nolan trilogy is too great, and Warner can't hold it. Finally, on the ashes of Wayne Manor, Bruce and Rachel confirmed their relationship, and a new story was also foreshadowed. After the film ended, most of the audience still had an expression of wanting more, but they also applauded and encouraged. The reporters who had been holding back for a long time also interviewed and asked questions to the crew of Batman Begins, and Nolan answered in a cooperative manner. Director Nolan, why did you choose to shoot Batman in this way? I heard that this project is jointly produced by Firefly Pictures and Warner, so can you talk about the distribution of interests in detail? Christian Bale, what is your reason for taking over this role? The reporter's attention was focused on director Nolan and the male lead Bale, while others such as Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, Cillian Murphy and others only attracted a small part of the firepower. Lyman, who was on the side, discussed the distribution of the film and the release date of The Lake Monster with Berrymere. Listening to the discussions of the film critics around him, Berrymere couldn't help but sigh. If this movie is successful, we will lose a lot. We are willing to cooperate on such a trump card project, which shows Warner's sincerity. Lemon laughed, but in his heart he thought that this guy really knows how to flatter his own company. What cooperation or not, superhero projects are very profitable, but we also take a lot of risks. If I'm not sure, I may not get involved. Besides, it is obvious that you are afraid that the development of the new Batman project will not be carried out. Otherwise you would have invested in the development long ago. Isn't it because you were afraid of losing money on Batman and Robin? You can even say such nonsense. You are indeed a qualified businessman. Lemon sighed. Chapter 544. Comic fans, subscriptions, vote. The movie Batman is showing in the theaters recently. I heard it's very good. Do you want to go and see it? The weather in June is very good, not to mention that it's a sunny day today. It's warm under the sun. At this moment, a blue car is speeding along. The powerful music coming from the speakers can even cover the roar of the engine. The white guy sitting in the driver's seat has to speak loudly to ensure that his companion sitting in the co-pilot can hear his voice. The companion also shouted, "Yes, the movie was released yesterday, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it's good." "Then let's go and see it." The white guy stopped at a red light intersection and turned his head and said, "I want to see how Mr. Wayne fights crime. It must be cool." As a person who has been influenced by American comics since childhood, how could he refuse the temptation of Batman? After all, the two major peaks of DC, one is Superman wearing red underwear outside, and the other is Batman. That popularity and charm are considered the childhood of several generations of American people. Not to mention, Warner's publicity is very strong. It is difficult not to attract the attention of movie fans. But his companion said, "I read the newspaper this morning and the review of the film said that it is too serious and has little entertainment value. It looks boring. No matter what the critics say, I have decided. Let's go to see this movie now." The white guy said excitedly. "Well, why not?" The companion expressed understanding. The car continued to speed. In fact, in the United States, many cinemas are built in small towns between cities. The reason for this is that for this country on wheels, people prefer to drive around. The land is vast and the population is sparse. The small towns between cities are connected into a radiation network. In addition, they are often located at the turning points of roads that extend in all directions, so they don't worry about not attracting audiences. This is also a special feature of American cinemas. Therefore, don't underestimate these cinemas that are not in the prosperous areas of big cities. The box office they can generate has always been a number that cannot be underestimated. The two guys drove to a place called Hofftown. When they went to buy movie tickets, they found that Batman Begins was still very popular, and they had to queue up. "Damn it, can't you open 2 more screening rooms?" The white guy began to complain. The companion was staring at the poster of The Dark Knight and suddenly asked, "How much money does this lemon last have? How come he is involved in this movie?" Involved in what? Isn't his name written in the producer column? It seems so. The words were very small, and you would miss them if you didn't look carefully. The white guy thought for a moment and replied, "Last time, it was a newspaper that said he was worth more than 1 billion. More than 1 billion? More than that. Didn't he buy 2 companies? Who cares? As long as the movies he makes are good, that's enough. It's only been a few years. Is it so profitable to make movies?" The companion swallowed his saliva and remembered that Firefly Pictures seemed to have invested a lot in this movie. After waiting for a while, it was their turn to buy tickets. 2 tickets for The Dark Knight. "What seat do you want? The middle seats are sold out," the ticket seller reminded. "Just don't sit too far forward. It's uncomfortable to look up." "Okay, the 9th row is fine." "Yeah." After sitting down, my companion fell asleep before the movie was halfway through. As the newspaper said, the plot in the beginning was too boring, and it was always tangled, which made the audience tangled. However, the white guy next to him was watching with relish. As a comic book fan, he would definitely not miss the classic The Dark Knight Returns. In a daze, he suddenly heard an audience member shouting "Batman," and his companion suddenly woke up. On the big screen, Christian Bale was wearing a familiar Batsuit, driving a Batmobile, and shuttling between the city roads of Gotham. It was so cool. My companion widened his eyes and thought the movie was good to watch. The subsequent fighting scenes with Scarecrow and the Shadow Warriors League were also big scenes. Cool. It's amazing. Hey. Really fucking handsome. There was a commotion in the screening hall, but Bruce Wayne, played by Bell, fought with Duckadder on the train, and finally broke away from the end of the battle. The show also made the audience very refreshing, and I couldn't wait to be a Batman who was also incarnate. From the release of this movie, the headquarters management of several theaters has been paying attention to the screening of the film. In the first week, the box office was neither high nor low. It won a total of $48.745 million and successfully won the championship. At least, according to this box office curve, the film can make a profit just by box office, and there is still a lot of room for subsequent profits. After all, Batman Begins is a superhero movie. If it can please DC comic fans, it will be a great help to comics and character peripherals. What makes Warner even more comfortable is that after the movie was shown for a while, the American comics industry suddenly set off a trend of buying single volumes of The Dark Knight Returns. This is really a pleasant surprise. Just relying on this, more than 10 million can be earned, and it doesn't have to be divided with Firefly Pictures. The character authorization has nothing to do with Lemon. Firefly Pictures only has the box office of the producer and the content income of the film itself, such as DVDs. Warner's distribution department office. After Barry Meir hung up the phone, he heard Norton, the executive of the distribution department, say, "Well, if Warner didn't cooperate with Firefly Pictures, at least it would be able to reap a lot of profits from this project. The foundation of the first film has been laid, and the production of the sequel will only be less risky and easier to promote. If all 3 films can be box office hits, how much money will it make?" Norton's face showed a thoughtful expression. Barry Meir listened, but he was very calm, and he did not regret cooperating with Firefly Pictures. Without Lemon, he didn't need to say nonsense to build relationships. Instead, he thought that if Firefly Pictures hadn't participated, the restart of the project might not have a clue, let alone so smooth. Without Nolan and the big money maker Legendary Pictures, Warner in the previous life would not have had the courage to operate the Batman project so generously. We need to increase investment in media public relations, and we can't relax overseas. The comments of some media and film critics still have a great influence on our guidance work. Yes. Chapter 545 Group Performance. Please subscribe and vote. The day after the premiere of The Man from the Dark Knight, Lemon went back to the set. Because it was only delayed for 1 day, he continued to work on the scenes that had not been finished before, and the state of several actors was still pretty good. In the next period of time, the filming work became busy again, and the screening of The Man from the Dark Knight also entered its second week. The daily box office of the film is still very stable. It will not explode, nor will it decline seriously. It holds the daily box office champion tightly. Following closely is DreamWorks' animated film Madagascar, which has been screened for 3 weeks, but the trend is very stable. Whether it is facing the middle and late Star Wars 3 or the newly launched The Man from the Dark Knight, it is not at all inferior. Of course, their mass base audience is different, and there is not much competition with live-action movies. Michigan. A nearby highway. Early in the morning, a section of the road of nearly 500 meters was blocked to cooperate with the crew's filming. A large amount of filming equipment was unloaded from the truck, and some residents also came to watch. The field staff and crew members followed and communicated, hoping that they would not take pictures. However, it is impossible not to take pictures. Especially when the leading actors appeared, it was impossible to stop them. Even director Lyman could arouse people's curiosity. After a while, paparazzi holding cameras suddenly appeared in the crowd near the highway. It seemed that the whereabouts of the crew had been completely leaked. Are all the extras in place? Lyman asked casually as he watched Thomas leading the camera crew to install cameras in a police car next to a police car prop provided by the state government. Well, 35 people have come and are rehearsing their parts over there. Now we need to change the shooting plan. The group scenes will be moved to the afternoon. In the morning, we will shoot the highway street scenes and the shots around the lake shore. Okay. Thomas responded, and then said, the community police station asked to stop shooting the blockade from 11 AM to 1 PM on the grounds that the traffic will be heavy and traffic cannot be blocked. Phew, you took the money, but didn't do the job. Lyman cursed and rubbed his brows in distress. There is not only one road next to this place, and it would not take much effort to go around it. However, the crew is also occupying public social resources. There is no reason to negotiate too much with government agencies. They can only continue to modify the shooting plan. Fortunately, there are not many scenes left, and a delay will not have much impact. Moreover, with the steady increase in the box office of Batman Begins, the crew has been very motivated in recent days, or the actors are very proactive, and they can't wait to finish shooting, release it, and then sell it as soon as possible, and their pay will soar as soon as possible. There is no way to let Batman Begins also invested by Firefly Pictures, so it is not surprising with such a good example. After all, Christian Bale, one of the leading actors, really doubled his pay, vaguely touching the threshold of first-line male stars, and dared to ask for a share of the box office and a higher basic salary. How can Matthew McConaughey, the leading actor of another project produced by Firefly Pictures, not take the initiative? Moreover, if the second week box office of The Dark Knight is accumulated, it has already exceeded 100 million in North America. It took 8 days to exceed 100 million. This result is much worse than Star Wars 3 in the early part of the summer season. Even 5 or 6 years later, a superhero movie that does not exceed 100 million on the first day is not considered a hit. But today in 2005, especially when it is restarted after being frozen, we can't expect too much. You know, such a result of The Dark Knight can definitely enter the top 10 of the annual North American box office list. After all, in 2004, the North American landing point was 200 million, and the global result was at least 300 million, which was not too bad. These days, there are less than 20 movies that exceed 100 million in North America every year. The Dark Knight has defeated 99% of its opponents, but it is not the top one. Of course, this can also be said that Star Wars 3 is too exaggerated. There are too many fans of the Star Wars series. It has only been screened for more than a month, and the global box office has exceeded 500 million, and it is heading for 600 million. After more than half an hour, Lyman walked behind the director's monitor and looked at the feedback screen. After confirming that there was no problem with the camera position and lighting, he confirmed with the stage staff, "Will the onlookers not sneak into the shooting area? Don't worry, everyone is watching." Lyman had to be so cautious. If a face that did not sign the contract appeared on the screen after the movie was released in the future, even if it was just a background board that the camera scanned once, it would be a very troublesome thing. The American people don't have any excitement about showing their faces in the movie. On the contrary, they still think that this is a kind of portrait infringement and they will definitely win the lawsuit. Therefore, once a passerby deliberately sneaks in and has the idea of blackmailing, if they really pursue it, the crew will definitely pay money to get rid of the disaster, and the amount will never be less than 1 or 800,000, which is more expensive than a second-tier actor playing the main supporting role. If you encounter a rogue, the amount will be raised. If you don't pay, the movie can't even be released, and that would be a real loss. Therefore, American extras are actually doing better. If there are many job opportunities, they can make a lot of money. Therefore, this is why American directors basically collapse when encountering war scenes when shooting epic themes. Either they force money to pile up, or they hire hundreds of people to shoot in teams, and then make it into tens of thousands of troops in the post-editing. If you are more clever, you can also use CG technology to render, but the character details of the latter are difficult to handle, and you can't give close-ups. If you give close-ups, it will be exposed. The staff dispatched a helicopter, familiarized themselves with the flight route, and sent a cameraman to move in. The task of shooting street scenes in the morning officially began. In the afternoon, they hurriedly filmed the scenes of the government blocking the lake shore and encircling the water monster. Lyman couldn't remember how many times he had to NG that day. Anyway, every dispatch might be restarted because of someone's mistake. But due to the meticulous shooting plan, everything was completed smoothly. This continued until June 29th. A week later, the crew returned to the Warner studio in Burbank at 10 AM. As the crew waited quietly for the last shot, Lyman nodded in satisfaction and gave everyone an okay sign. I declare that the lake monster has finished filming. Everyone come to the crew party tonight. Lyman spoke loudly with a megaphone. Preparations started in mid-April. Filming started in May, and filming was completed at the end of June. The busy work of more than 2 months has finally come to an end. Chapter 546 Wrap Up. Subscribe, vote. It has to be said that the production cycle of special effects movies is generally longer than that of feature films. Even though the plot of The Lake Monster is not complicated at all, the main reason why it took so long to complete is to cooperate with the digital field to collect data, and the motion capture scenes are particularly troublesome to shoot. If it weren't for these scenes, the movie might have been completed in less than a month. After Lyman announced the completion of the filming, the crew members all breathed a sigh of relief and cheered. This high-intensity shooting work is relatively friendly to the actors, but it is very tiring for the production team, not only physically, but also mentally tense. Therefore, the party banquet after the equipment was sealed in the afternoon was also a sudden relaxation under long-term pressure, and became particularly unrestrained. Drinking big gulps of wine is just the norm, and drinking too much and dancing on the dance floor is called a group of demons dancing wildly, which is extremely noisy. In this regard, Lyman just watched. Americans have a strong party culture, and there is nothing wrong with venting. After all, on the set, everyone does not have the conditions to indulge. Matthew McConaughey's performance was quite different. After seeing this scene, he only stayed for less than half an hour before leaving. He was not as stuffy as Cage. He looked serious, but he actually loved to play. If he was older, it might be understandable, just like Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman who didn't come at all. After all, they were old and had limited energy. But Matthew was in his prime and didn't like to revel and indulge. He was a bit different. No wonder he could endure a 6 to 7 year low period in the original time and space. He didn't indulge himself like some actors who also fell into the low period and disappeared from the circle completely and couldn't grasp any opportunities. Soon, Lyman told Thomas and left. He didn't like the party atmosphere in the United States either. It was too noisy. It hurt his head. After leaving the bar, Matthew McConaughey hadn't driven away yet. Lyman smiled and greeted him. Are you not used to it? It's okay, but the sound is a bit loud and the music is too exciting. Haha. Lyman smiled and turned to leave. Matthew McConaughey suddenly trotted over again. What's the matter? Lyman asked doubtfully. Just wanted to say thank you. Matthew McConaughey hesitated for a moment. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. This thank you was not polite at all. After the box office failure of Sahara, although the media quickly shifted their focus and stopped paying attention to and reporting on Matthew, it was only after so long that Matthew really felt the serious consequences of this failure. Not only could he not get any event endorsements, but he couldn't even get a decent film contract. This was the embarrassment. He had just made his debut. Let's not talk about whether he could be selected for the role, but it was really miserable not to get any invitations. Moreover, he had long passed the stage of being a rookie. Don't be like this, Matthew. You have a good foundation and are suitable for this movie. Then, Matthew McConaughey said again, will I have the opportunity to participate in your work again in the future? In fact, this sentence is what Matthew wanted to say the most, and it was also the advice given to him by his agent. Although he didn't know why you could participate in The Lake Monster, it was obvious that director Lyman had a good impression of you, and what he had to do next was to seize this opportunity and deepen the relationship. But Lyman really just thought it was appropriate, and it was also because Matthew's salary and value had just dropped sharply, and working together would save some money. So he casually said perfunctorily, maybe. I don't even know what my next movie will be. It means that it depends on the situation, and he doesn't want to deepen the cooperation with you. Of course, it's better to express your meaning in a tactful way, and there is no need to be blunt and hurtful. As an actor, Matthew can still make a living. Matthew McConaughey is also a smart man. Although he was rejected, he still said, I hope there will be another chance. Lyman looked at him and tried to say another sentence. Matthew, in fact, you can focus on the independent film circle. There are many opportunities there, but you need to choose the script carefully. And, after The Lake Monster is released, you just need to be more cautious in the future. In the future, Matthew will rise again from the independent film circle. In that circle, the salary is definitely not high, because there is no money, but there are many newcomers, and no shortage of good works. As long as you have vision and outstanding acting skills, you will soon be able to stand out. This path is the most suitable choice for Matthew. After all, he has failed before, and unlike Cage, he does not have the influence of an actor who can turn things around. It is better to hone his acting skills. Just like Heath Ledger, he is an outsider. Hollywood will never have many resources for him. His image also limits his star path. He cannot be an idol and cannot attract the attention of girls. Now he is doing well in the independent film circle, which is much better than his previous life. Lyman's words made Matthew think. His agent also said that it would be difficult for him to go back to the past. Even if The Lake Monster sold well, it only saved a large part of his career. If he wants to stand out, he needs to continue to prove himself. In this way, participating in independent works is also a good idea. Matthew quickly figured it out. He was a little disappointed at first, but now he is a little enlightened. With the qualifications of The Lake Monster, he really doesn't have to wait for opportunities to find him, but takes the initiative to find opportunities. Director Lyman, thank you. After saying this sincerely, Matthew McConaughey watched Lyman drive away, and then he called his agent to ask him to keep an eye out for independent filmmakers who lack funds or other things, and who can join the crew with a salary while acting and waiting for the next peak of their career. After Lyman returned to his home in Beverly Hills, Eva was there too. She has been busy communicating with MGM about the salary for the performance recently. After several rounds of quotations, they are almost reaching an agreement. However, Casino Royale is still in the preparation stage, and the new Bond actor is still being selected. In this regard, MGM is looking for middle-aged British male actors. Don't ask, just ask the British style. Regarding this matter, it seems that Daniel Craig was finally chosen to be the new Bond, Lyman thought. The reason why he knew this person was that after Daniel married Rachel Weisz, he angrily criticized director Darren Aronofsky, the one who filmed Black Swan. Rachel had given birth to a child for Darren, and Daniel was the second one. Moreover, during the Oscar campaign for Black Swan, various scandals occurred. Natalie Portman later had a very bad reputation among the public. Most of the reasons were that, after starring in Black Swan, she revealed her hypocritical white leftist face. She supported women's rights, but despised and suppressed female substitutes. As for the director, his character was also quite bad. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547. Genius. Subscribe. Vote. After the filming was finished, the crew disbanded, but Lyman and Thomas still couldn't sit still, and had to immediately devote themselves to the post-production of the film. This year's Christmas season is definitely fiercely competitive. Starting from July, there is a lot of time left for the post-production of The Lake Monster, but it can't be delayed. In the following days, the soundtrack, editing and other work were carried out one by one. Lyman stayed in the editing room every day. Although it was very mentally exhausting, it actually felt good. Watching the film improve bit by bit, there was a unique high-spirited mood. In addition to his own important work, Lyman also often read newspapers to learn about various Hollywood news. Since the beginning of July, the box office of Batman Begins has begun to decline sharply, from 800 to 900 daily box office to less than 5 million daily box office, and the decline is still there. However, the total box office of the film in North America has exceeded 150 million, and the global cumulative total is 230 million. Compared with the shooting cost and the cost of publicity and promotion of $130 million, the profit prospects are very bright. Not to mention that due to the momentum of the screening of Batman and the positive reports from various media, the performance of DC Comics department has increased significantly. Many passers-by have also been attracted by the movie and become DC comic fans. Every member of Warner's management is happy in their hearts. After all, before Batman Begins appeared, the development of Bruce Wayne's character value rarely made money like this. This is actually the future trend of why comic-based movies will be popular, eating the box office and the surrounding. There is more room for profit than ordinary big works, so even if the investment is high, once it succeeds, it will make a lot of money, which is still very cost-effective. At least, making a movie is taking risks, so why not choose something that can make more money? On the market, the focus of other media is on the role played by Lyman's Firefly Pictures in this project, and the news that it may get up to 130 million box office share. It is difficult for Hollywood to hide secrets. I don't know where the media got the first-hand information from. Anyway, the New York Daily News did a calculation for this. Among them, it was clearly reported that Firefly Pictures undertook the filming cost of The Dark Knight Rises of nearly 110 million. According to the agreement signed by both parties, with a global box office of at least 370 million, after deducting the distribution commission occupied by Warner, as the largest investor, Firefly Pictures can earn at least $130 million from the box office, and the higher the upper limit, the higher the income. However, if we calculate the investment of Firefly Pictures, then the box office will only recover the cost, and the profit will not exceed 20 million. Compared with Warner Pictures' investment of less than 40 million, publicity and distribution expenses, but it has received 74 million plus all the surrounding benefits of copyright. It seems that Firefly Pictures is working for free. If you have this idea, you are wrong. In fact, this newspaper is also satirizing Warner, thinking that they dare not take a little risk, but instead give their own money-making series to others to share, causing unnecessary losses. This is just like Lucasfilm giving all its trump card project Star Wars to others for investment. You know, with Warner's strength, it can be completely self-sufficient, whether it is production or publicity. It does not need to rely on outsiders. Why dare not invest in the Batman project? From the perspective of profit harvest, Firefly Pictures paid a lot, but did not get the big head. But this is a project that Warner can develop by itself. Firefly's behavior is cutting Warner's own cake. No matter how much is cut, it should be regarded as Warner's loss. The argument of this newspaper is based on this. After all, a project earns 20 million, not including the subsequent content income from DVD burning and distribution. With Warner's size, there are less than 7 projects that can be developed in a year that make so much money. Speaking of this, Warner is also a little depressed. People always don't like to find faults in themselves. The result that was acceptable seemed to become less acceptable. If the Batman series could become a goldmine like Harry Potter, wouldn't Warner's performance be able to reach a higher level? They even held a small meeting to figure out some ways that they thought they could get rid of Firefly Pictures through legal means. Unfortunately, it didn't work at all. Because Lyman left a precaution in the investment agreement. He actually learned this trick from Legendary Pictures in his previous life. Although Thomas Tull can't make movies, the first investment philosophy he learned from his background in Wall Street is to never believe that business partners will abide by any moral ethics in the face of huge profit distribution. Therefore, when he cooperated with Warner, he played a mixed investment, which was to take the 5-year 30 films in the future Warner production project as a whole. In this way, the investment risk can be spread over multiple films, even if many of them are loss-making, as long as the overall harvest is positive. For Legendary Pictures, this means stable investment. Of course, Warner Brothers is actually very bad. For example, they never let Legendary Pictures get involved in some of the sequels that have already been sold out. For example, in the Harry Potter series, the name of Legendary Pictures is not seen in the investment line. But Legendary Pictures also has its own little tricks. That is, no matter whether the projects they invest in are loss-making or profitable, Warner Brothers will definitely not be able to avoid making sequels unless everyone gives up. This is also the reason why after the success of Batman Begins, Warner Brothers did not kick Legendary Pictures out to do it alone in the next 2 films, not because they did not want to kick them out, but because they could not kick them out through legal means, unless the Batman project continued to be shelved and no one developed it. Back to the present, Firefly Pictures also played the same way. Of course, they are not as generous as Legendary Pictures. Lyman just took the Batman trilogy as a whole package and calculated it. The premise for agreeing not to occupy the copyright is that Warner Brothers guarantees the rationality of Firefly Pictures' investment. Otherwise, after making money, they were kicked out. Lyman was stupid to pay money to Warner to incubate the project. Therefore, Warner had no choice but to continue to develop the sequel to Batman with Firefly Pictures. This is also the reason why they were teased, although no one knows who disclosed the specific details of the contract. Everyone is willing to see Warner's jokes. On July 14th, after 2 weeks of rough cutting, the general content of The Lake Monster has been released. The whole film is about 114 minutes long, including the opening and ending credits. It is controlled within 120 minutes. After all, it is a special effects movie, and the length issue must be paid attention to. Once the rhythm is too slow, the movie will appear wordy, and the visual pleasure that can be given to the audience will also be affected. In other words, special effects films should not learn to think like other people's drama movies, because they are not in the same category at all. Chapter 548 Tim Burton, subscribe, vote. July 15th, the North American film market welcomed 2 blockbusters. One is the romantic comedy Wedding Crashers by New Line Cinema, and the other is the fantasy film Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, shot by the genius director Tim Burton and released by Warner Brothers. The release of these 2 films also means that the 2005 summer season has come to an end. Although the post-production work of The Lake Monster did not become easy because of the editing, Lyman, as the boss of a film company, is still very concerned about the works of other film companies. Among them, Wedding Crashers and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory are both of good quality. The former had a box office of $33.9 million in the first week and more than 1,900 screens. The latter had a box office of $56.17 million in the first week and more than 2,400 screens, and basically occupied the first and second places in the weekly box office list with their performance. However, in comparison, New Line Cinema suffers from the disadvantage that it is not as good as Warner in publicity and distribution, and the number of screens it has obtained is too small. Otherwise, Wedding Crashers may not be inferior to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. As for Batman Begins, it has been released for a month and has received most of the box office revenue. It doesn't matter whether there are new films released or not, or whether it is a hit or not. Anyway, the box office revenue of $1 or $2 million a day is hanging. Let's go back to the previous comparison. In fact, the style of director Tim Burton is too personal, and the consequence of the style is that those who love it very much, and those who don't like it will not go to the cinema to support it. It can't compare with the market level of Wedding Crashers that the public can accept. Born in 1958, this 47-year-old director is always known for being weird, and you can see it from his circle of friends. His favorite actor to work with is Johnny Depp, and he has been married to Red Queen Helena Bonham Carter. If the entire Hollywood director circle selects the weirdest person, then it is definitely him. He is a man of few words, with a bizarre imagination and a unique Burton-style exaggerated visual style, which often gives his works the labels of gothic, strange and weird, making them highly recognizable. Take a look at the characters in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, a little boy who wears an exaggerated device to prevent tooth decay, and eventually becomes the world's largest chocolate producer. Not to mention his style of painting. This guy majored in painting, and can be a cartoonist, even if he can't be a director. Then, coupled with Johnny Depp's wonderful performance, with the support of many fans, he has been suppressing Wedding Crashers from the beginning. But the box office trend of Wedding Crashers is too stable, with a drop of less than 15% in the second week and a drop of 23% in the third week, which is much more stable than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So, in the middle of the third week, Wedding Crashers overtook strongly, and then continued to surpass. Facts have proved that comedy is comedy, and it is the easiest existence to win big with small in any country. Is director David Dokken more famous than Tim Burton? Are all the actors in the film more talked about than Johnny Depp after his performance in Pirates of the Caribbean? Even if we compare investment and publicity, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is the winner. But the charm of a movie lies in how many audiences it can please, not in the loop. Therefore, New Line, Lionsgate, Firefly Pictures, and Screen Treasures can sometimes beat the big six, instead of losing directly, because of theater problems. In terms of scheduling, Warner is of course dominant, but the film market is there, and it is impossible to ask theaters not to tilt resources out. Moreover, theaters are not something that can be decided by one company. In the fourth week, the box office of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory plummeted, with a drop of more than 45%, while Wedding Crashers remained stable, only falling by 30%, and finally surpassed it in terms of total box office. The box office evaluation agency directly gave a reservation, saying that Wedding Crashers could at least win Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by $2 million box office. But in the end, Wedding Crashers not only beat Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by $2 million, but by nearly $3 million. In the last few days before the film was released, the box office unexpectedly recovered, and it earned $700,000 to $800,000 more, winning by a slight advantage. As a result, Wedding Crashers has accumulated more than $209 million in North America, currently ranking 4th in the annual box office rankings, while Charlie and the Chocolate Factory ranks 5th with more than $206 million, and the 6th is Batman Begins with more than $205 million. Lemon's work The Mist also ranks 3rd with more than $219 million, and the 2nd is Spielberg's War of the Worlds, with a North American box office of more than $230 million. The 1st, of course, is Star Wars 3, with more than $380 million in the United States and $850 million worldwide. Which is really impossible to catch up. After entering August, when Lemon continued the post-production of The Lake Monster, the special effects work in the digital field had been completed. If it weren't for the work in the digital field, the post-production of The Lake Monster would not have taken so long. In fact, it took 2 weeks to edit, and 1 week to record the sound effects, which was already very relaxed. In the meantime, Lemon even accompanied Eva to MGM. By the way, MGM is really in decline. There are really not many projects that can be shown off. The management is also extremely chaotic. The helmsman is often replaced 3 times in 2 years, and then it is even more chaotic. I don't know what the shareholders behind are doing. Of course, MGM has little to do with Lemon. In fact, the worse they are, the more competitors like Firefly Pictures are happy to see. And that time was also when Eva decided to participate in 007. Casino Royale and signed a contract for participation. In terms of salary, the conditions are also quite good. Just for playing a vase, she was paid $7 million plus box office incentives, which is more than what the male lead Daniel got. After choosing the new Bond, MGM still chose Daniel Craig. This guy's also very good at dealing with things. When he saw Lemon and Eva that day, he took the initiative to come up and chat. He has a high emotional intelligence. Knowing that the heroine is Eva, he took the initiative to ask MGM to delete the intimate scenes in Casino Royale. As for the nudity, there will be no more. Even the kissing scene can actually be filmed with a borrowed position, which is also the condition for Eva to participate. Originally, Lyman thought that Eva was very valuable now, and the conditions she proposed were very harsh, so MGM might give up. But who knew that they had this plan and actually proposed to let Lyman be the producer of the project. Because of the change of Bond, MGM was also afraid that the latest issue of 007 would not have a good start in the market, so they wanted to take out insurance. After thinking about it, they felt that Lyman had a good vision for the market, so they invited Eva to participate to show goodwill to Lyman. Lyman agreed to this. Isn't it just producing? He doesn't have to shoot it. Just give some suggestions and grasp the overall situation, and don't deviate from the original version, and the box office will not be bad. Moreover, MGM was very considerate. As a producer, Lyman was given 10% of the North American box office share. Of course, this condition did not include other salary benefits. Anyway, the more popular the movie is, the more Lyman will get. This was a little calculation made by MGM. Chapter 549 Fatal Magic. Please subscribe and vote. In September, Batman Begins was basically being released all over the world. On September 3rd, Warner Brothers couldn't wait to hold a press conference to report the results to the media and the public, enhance the company's prestige, and hold a celebration party for the crew. In fact, Warner Pictures had wanted to do this for a long time. If the results were not disclosed, how would the audience know? Moreover, it could use this momentum to announce to many fans that there would definitely be follow-up to the production of Batman, and they were looking forward to it. The credit in this regard is due to Lyman's unremitting efforts. Otherwise, if Nolan was won over and Legendary Pictures was squeezed out, whether the Batman trilogy was still the classic series was a very debatable question. Fortunately, the start of Batman Begins was still good. Although the box office was not a big hit compared to the cost, with only $376 million worldwide, it did not lose money like the previous work. Whether it was the theaters, investors, or even Warner, they could all get a share of the pie. This is the long-term solution. Presumably, after the trilogy is finished, Warner will be very grateful to him when they see the mess left behind, right? Lyman thought happily. After all, Bruce Wayne in the DC comic adaptation of later generations, people often say, Nolan is the reason for his success and failure, which is not an exaggeration. It is precisely because the trilogy is a self-contained system, and it is well made, that it is recognized by movie fans. After other directors took over the Batman project, it was really difficult to surpass it, and they fell into a swamp. Of course, DC is just a department of the Warner Group. Anyway, Firefly Pictures cannot get the copyright of DC superheroes. If they can grab it, they will grab it. There is no point in worrying about it for Warner. At this moment, several Warner executives stood on Lyman's left, and Nolan stood on his right, and they were still dealing with media friends. When the people below heard this, they all understood the topic of this trip. Batman Begins is a masterpiece after all, and it is also the beginning of the Batman reboot. Now Warner has said that it will shoot the second part next year. There are so many things to talk about, and most of the audience will be interested in it. Interest means traffic, which means royalties or bonuses. For a while, the flashlights kept on and the mouths kept on. Excuse me, will the director of the second part still be Christopher Nolan? Which Batman comic chapter will be adapted? Has the role been confirmed? Will Warner replace Christian Bale? The scene was noisy. Several Warner executives were accustomed to this and chose a few questions to answer on their own, but they were all very ambiguous. What about keeping the original team as much as possible? But it didn't clearly say that the personnel would remain unchanged. After all, the subsequent salary negotiations for the crew are also a very difficult thing. The more positive the attitude is now, the more unfavorable it will be for them, the studios, to make a gesture in the negotiations. Fortunately, Lyman was very smart to draw up a long-term contract for the sequel, which ensured that the salaries of Bale and other leading actors would not soar too high all at once. This can be regarded as saving money in advance, which is only good for Firefly and Warner Pictures. Of course, this is definitely not so refreshing for the actors and their agencies. The reporters in the audience were perfunctory and could not find any controversial topics. They were a little disappointed, but there was no place for them to talk nonsense to old-timers like Warner, let alone digging traps. After the press conference, a cocktail party was waiting for the crew. Among them, Nolan was the happiest. His last work was a remake, and the investment was not much, but this one was invested over $100 million, the top project in Hollywood, and it was successful. Just the salary, the box office incentives of the film, and the special treatment given by Lyman personally, together, the benefits should be around $12 million US. It can be said that all his previous works added up did not make so much money. Of course, this part of the money has only been given $9 million now, and the rest is estimated to not be received in half a year. After all, Warner Brothers hasn't really delivered all the profits to Firefly yet. To have so much, Lyman gave him a part of it in advance from Firefly Pictures. Therefore, Nolan was very grateful for Lyman's recognition and support. When he had a new idea for shooting, he chose to talk to Lyman as soon as possible. Not the Batman series. This project had to be approved by Warner Brothers. Nolan said that this project was inspired by his brother Jonathan, and he wanted to write a script with Victorian magicians as the background. Moreover, he had seen a little bit of it and thought it would be very good to shoot it, and he was quite interested. This news really made Lyman stunned for a while. If it weren't for the proper expression management, he would have laughed out loud on the spot. Why? Without even reading the script, Lyman knew that this project should be The Prestige, the same box office masterpiece. In his previous life, Nolan also started a magic movie after shooting Batman Begins, because Warner Brothers didn't have a pressing plan for the trilogy. Lyman even knew that the film was adapted from Priest's novel of the same name, because Jonathan was originally a manager in the editorial department of Firefly Pictures. When he saw the book and got the inspiration to start working on the movie script, he naturally would not fail to inform his own company. Of course, his work on adapting the script has not been completed yet, and he doesn't know whether the company will invest in it. After all, the editorial department has never independently planned a movie project. Well, I understand. So, when will the filming start? Not so soon. Nolan waved his hands repeatedly. He just revealed a little bit of his meaning, but he didn't know that Lyman agreed so quickly. Why didn't he need to investigate the prospects of the project? But on second thought, he felt that Lyman's trusting attitude made him very comfortable, and he was happy to think that cooperating with Firefly Pictures was his best choice. The script isn't ready yet. Nolan clinked his champagne glasses with Lyman, took a sip, and explained, "Lyman, I have to go back to England next. After I finish some trivial matters, I may have to continue to work on the script, perfect the story, prepare the crew, select actors." Nolan said one by one, implying that he didn't know when the filming would start, and he had never thought about it, and didn't have any plans. "Okay, Nolan," Lyman said seriously, "as long as you want to shoot, Firefly Pictures will support you. Whether it's the investment amount or the behind the scenes staff, we can arrange it." "Thank you." "No, I should thank you. I'm optimistic about your future." The glasses clinked, and the two laughed together. The party lasted until midnight, and the slightly drunk Lyman was able to get away and go to the hotel room to rest. Chapter 550 Trial, Subscriptions, Votes Required. September 10th, in the screening room of the Blue Butterfly Pictures building, the president of the Los Angeles branch of Emperor Cinemas greeted the acquaintances around him enthusiastically as soon as he walked in. Next to him, Lyman was also chatting with the management of these cinemas. There are less than 10 most powerful cinemas in Hollywood, and AMC, Royal Entertainment Group, Emperor Cinemas, and Cinemark account for half of the screens. Although these cinema executives are each for their own masters, they often jointly promote films and are very familiar with each other. They even often discuss whether it is worth investing resources. So, today they gathered together, of course, for the screening of the movie. Now, the post-production of Dead Silence has been completed, and Lyman immediately began to prepare for the publicity and distribution. The early publicity has also been launched. Throwing away more than $6.5 million, the release date is set in mid-September. This trip to invite the cinema is only to finally determine the scale of the opening and the share of the film. As we all know, whether a movie makes money or not, and how much money it makes, all require the cooperation of theaters. Otherwise, even if it has the potential to be a hit like Titanic, it will not make much money without enough screens. After a while, Lyman, James Wan, and Lyman also arrived. After a round of polite conversation, one of the theater presidents asked, "Mr. Last, James Wan, how much do you think the box office will be this time? Tell us first, so that we can have a reference when we make a decision." The scale of movie screening is not the bigger the better, but it is based on the potential audience of the movie. Otherwise, although the number of screens is huge, the distribution of interests and the revenue of the film will be unfavorable to the studio, and the studio that could have made money will suffer losses because the theaters take too much. Moreover, there are more than 30,000 screens in the United States. Who can afford a movie? Moreover, many regions prefer to purchase and screen them in the second round. That is, works that have been taken off the shelves by mainstream theaters are screened for a long time in some areas with low passenger flow. After all, the less prosperous the area, the fewer people have spare money to watch movies. The theaters there want to survive, and basically they buy the second round of screening rights to solve the problem of film sources. I'd better ask director James Wan to answer this question. I can only say that as a horror movie, its quality is absolutely excellent. As for how the market is, it is not just the film itself that can tell. You are all theater executives, and you should know that publicity and distribution can easily determine the market. Lyman said with a smile, and he didn't want to make a random analysis. If it is correct, there is no problem. If it is wrong, it will definitely be a joke that will spread out. What's more, Dead Silence has deviated from the original work by half. It can only be said that some of the flaws in the plot and the flaws in the characters have been erased. The rhythm is smoother, and the viewing experience is better. Anyway, if you are not sure, it is better not to talk about it in general, so as to avoid the theaters and Blue Butterfly Pictures from making wrong judgments. After all, with the reputation that Lyman has accumulated, and the vision that has been proven, what if he exaggerates too much and fails to meet expectations? Why are you not optimistic? The president of AMC chuckled and teased. In the past few years, Firefly's film projects are still very profitable. As a member of the cinema chain, it also faces the problem of lack of popular films, so the relationship is naturally maintained well. No, I'm very optimistic. Lyman smiled and said, "It's useless to talk about these now. You should watch the feature film yourself before deciding how many screens to allocate. The preview will start soon. I hope it will be another Saw." Another cinema executive has a hint. Shooting horror themes is exactly what James Wan is good at, but he hasn't directed a new work in 2 years. The Saw series has been screened to the 4th one. Although the audience is a little tired of the theme, the box office is not very good. The latest one was only released for 3.5 weeks and earned $17.56 million in the box office before it was quickly closed and released on DVD. Since the third part of this series, it has been in a loss based on the box office alone. If it weren't for the good prospects of the DVD market, Lyman would have stopped shooting long ago. Even so, they couldn't make much money. Firefly Pictures was packed and handed over to Lionsgate to slowly develop the peripheral value. They only took a small part of the profits and let them earn this hard-earned money. After all, Lionsgate in the previous life was a tough guy who made 8 Saw movies. They were happy to take any profit. Anyway, they had a lot of people in the company. Instead of keeping them doing nothing, they might as well make some money. After Lyman sat down, he quickly focused on the big screen. Dead Silence is the second horror movie directed by James Wan, even though it was 2 years apart. After all, the output of Hollywood directors is generally not high, and a new work every 2 years is already very impressive. His shooting techniques are still skillful, and the atmosphere of the film has a thriller effect. Moreover, after the script was improved, the main line became clearer. It mainly tells the story of a small town wrongly accusing a puppet performer. Later, this woman named Mary Shaw committed suicide at home. Her blood soaked Billy, her favorite puppet, before her death, and became a demon. She killed the residents of the town. Legend has it that anyone who screams at night will lose his tongue and die. Many people fled the town, but they still couldn't escape the ghost's death. Then the protagonist appeared. His wife received a gift one day, which contained an exquisite doll. That night, his wife screamed and died tragically, and she also lost her tongue. Then the protagonist investigated the matter, and found out why Mary Shaw committed suicide in the town. Among them, the portrayal of the murder scene is still very imaginative. As far as watching the movie is concerned, there are basically small climaxes. Almost every 10 minutes, someone dies. Through a series of clues, Mary Shaw's character is fully outlined, which can be regarded as the most impressive character in the film. Until the end, the protagonist destroyed the doll Billy, seemingly killing Mary Shaw's soul, but also buried the sequel production plan that Mary Shaw did not dissipate. In this regard, Lyman reminded James Wan to add it specially. After all, if Dead Silence sells well, there will be a market for sequels. It may not be a problem to shoot 1 or 2 more films without asking for the longevity of Saw. Furthermore, James Wan later created a ghost universe. Since Marvel became successful, all kinds of interlinked universes have appeared. James Wan was actually following the trend. Now, there is no money to acquire Marvel, and the timing is not right, but the universe development plan can be advanced. James Wan has this talent. What's wrong with being the first to try it? At this time, Warner only knew how to develop ace characters. They shot one Superman and Batman after another, but they didn't pay much attention to other characters. If they didn't lay a good foundation, they probably wouldn't be able to play the interlinked universe later. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.